The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Starfleet had catalogued thousands of species, mapped nebulae and neutron stars, survived encounters with entities that existed beyond conventional matter. But what happens when something defies every sensor, every theory, every rational explanation? When two objects appear that read as both vessel and life form, both inert and radiating power beyond anything in Federation records. Captain James T. Kirk stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise, staring at the view screen with the expression of a man who'd seen the impossible before and learned to treat it as merely improbable. The two objects hung in space 300,000 kilometers off the port bow, sleek, crystalline pods that seemed to shimmer with their own internal light. They'd appeared 18 minutes ago, materializing without warp signature, without any conventional propulsion trace, without warning. Mr. Spock? Kirk asked, hands clasped behind his back. The Vulcan science officer straightened from his hooded scanner, one eyebrow raised in what Kirk had learned to recognize as genuine fascination. Fascinating, Captain. The objects are approximately 4.2 meters in length, composed of a crystalline alloy I cannot identify. They are generating their own energy field, substantial output, comparable to a small starship's warp core. Yet sensors detect no antimatter reaction, no dilithium regulation, no conventional power source whatsoever. Life signs? Inconclusive. Spock's fingers danced across his console. There are organic readings within each pod, humanoid configurations, but the energy signatures are interfering with biometric analysis. I am detecting what appears to be cellular activity operating at efficiency levels that exceed biological norms by several orders of magnitude. Lieutenant Uhura turned from her communications station, her expression troubled. Captain, I'm receiving no distress signal, no hailing frequencies, nothing on any standard or subspace channel. But there's something else, a carrier wave, almost subsonic, like a heartbeat. Two distinct patterns. Kirk moved to the command chair but didn't sit. The Enterprise had been on routine patrol of Sector 221G, charting spatial anomalies near the neutral zone, when these objects had simply appeared on long-range sensors. Appeared. Not warped in, not impulse-driven from a nearby system. One moment, empty space. The next, two unknown vessels radiating enough power to light a small city. Could they be Romulan? Kirk asked. Some new cloaking technology? Negative, Captain, Spock replied. The energy signature bears no resemblance to Romulan plasma-based systems. Nor Klingon, Tholian, or any known spacefaring civilization in Federation records. Then where did they come from? Unknown. However, I am detecting residual subspace distortions consistent with a dimensional rift, not a spatial fold or wormhole, but rather a breach between parallel realities. The mathematical probability of such an occurrence is... I don't need the odds, Spock. I need options. Kirk's voice carried the weight of command, but also something else, curiosity, the explorer's instinct that had driven him to Starfleet in the first place. Can we beam whatever's inside those pods aboard? The energy field is interfering with transporter locks, Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott's voice came from the engineering station. I can't get a clean pattern through that much interference, Captain. It'd be like trying to beam through a sun. Kirk weighed the variables. Two unknown objects. Humanoid life signs. No distress call, but also no hostile action. They hung in space like artifacts, like messages in bottles cast across an impossible ocean. Mr. Sulu, bring us to within 10,000 kilometers. Yellow alert. Mr. Chekhov, shields up, but keep weapons on standby. Uhura, open all hailing frequencies. Aye, Captain. Sulu's hands moved across the helm with practiced precision as the Enterprise adjusted course. The ship glided forward, impulse engines thrumming as the massive Constitution-class starship closed the distance. On the view screen, the pods grew larger, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the distant stars. Kirk could see symbols etched into their hulls now. Geometric patterns that seemed both alien and hauntingly familiar, like ancient hieroglyphics translated through a dream. "Captain," Spock said suddenly, "the pods are responding to our approach. Their energy output is increasing." "Shields holding," Chekhov reported, his Russian accent thickening slightly with tension. Then, without warning, the pods began to open. The crystalline surfaces split along seamless seams, petals of alien metal folding outward like mechanical flowers. Light spilled from within, not the harsh white of Federation technology, but a warm, golden radiance that seemed to carry its own weight. Kirk felt his breath catch as two figures emerged, floating in the vacuum of space as if it were nothing more than water. "My God," Dr. McCoy breathed from his position near the turbolift. He'd arrived on the bridge moments before, summoned by the yellow alert. "Jim, are they in spacesuits?" They weren't. Kirk could see that clearly now. Two humanoid figures, one male and one female, suspended in hard vacuum without any visible life support. The male was tall, powerfully built, wearing a blue suit with a strange red and yellow symbol on his chest, a stylized diamond shape containing what looked like the letter S. A red cape billowed behind him, moved by no wind that should exist in space. The female was younger, blonde hair floating around her shoulders, wearing a similar costume in blue and red with the same symbol on her chest and a cape of her own. They turned toward the Enterprise, and even across 10,000 kilometers of space, Kirk felt the weight of their gaze. "Captain," Spock's voice was carefully controlled, "sensors now indicate the beings themselves are the source of the energy readings. They are generating power levels equivalent to a Federation starship. Their cellular structure is absorbing and converting electromagnetic radiation, specifically solar radiation, into bioenergy at unprecedented efficiency." "Are you telling me those two people are living reactors?" "In essence, yes. And Captain, they are moving." The male figure raised one hand in what might have been a peaceful gesture, then both beings accelerated toward the Enterprise. Not with jetpacks or thruster suits, but simply by willing themselves forward. They moved at velocities that should have required warp drive, crossing the distance in seconds, coming to a stop meters from the ship's hull. The male tapped on the hull with one knuckle, 3 deliberate knocks that rang through the Enterprise's superstructure like gongs. "They're knocking," Kirk said, a smile tugging at his lips despite the absurdity. "Mr. Spock, do we have any idea what we're dealing with?" "None whatsoever, Captain. But I would suggest we find out before the Klingon or Romulans detect these energy signatures. Two beings with this level of power would be of significant strategic interest to any hostile faction." Kirk nodded slowly. These two, whoever or whatever they were, had just crossed the gulf of space as easily as walking across a room. They'd emerged from vessels that had punched through dimensional barriers. They were everything Starfleet had trained him to approach with caution, protocol, and careful analysis. But they'd also knocked. Politely. "Scotty, can you get a transporter lock now that they're outside the pods?" "Aye, Captain. Got 'em locked. But I'm warning you, their energy signatures are playing havoc with the pattern buffers. Beam them directly to the transporter room. Security team standing by, but phasers on stun and nobody fires unless I give the order. Dr. McCoy, I'll want you there for medical assessment." Kirk stood, tugging his gold command tunic straight. "And Spock, you're with me. If we're about to make first contact with beings who can survive in hard vacuum and knock on starship hulls, I want the most logical mind on the ship watching my back. A reasonable precaution, Captain." As Kirk strode toward the turbolift, he glanced once more at the view screen. The two figures floated there, patient, waiting. Beyond them, the crystalline pods hung in space like discarded cocoons. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Kirk remembered an old Earth legend about visitors from the stars. Visitors with power and purpose. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The turbolift doors hissed closed as Kirk, Spock, and McCoy descended toward the transporter room and whatever awaited them there. The transporter room hummed with barely contained energy as Kirk stepped through the doors, Spock and McCoy flanking him. Four security officers stood at attention, phaser rifles held at ready positions but not aimed, a careful balance between preparedness and hospitality that Kirk had perfected over 3 years of command. Chief Kyle manned the transporter controls, his hands hovering over the console with visible tension. "Status, Chief?" Kirk asked. "The pattern buffers are compensating, Captain, but these readings are unprecedented. It's like trying to beam aboard 2 miniature suns. The biofilters can't make sense of their cellular structure, it's humanoid, but the energy saturation is off every scale we have." Kirk nodded, moving to stand before the transporter pad. The platform gleamed under the overhead lights, 6 circular pads waiting to receive visitors who'd crossed more than simple distance to reach this moment. "Energize." The familiar whine of the transporter filled the room, but something was different. The usual smooth materialization stuttered, the twin columns of golden light flickering like candle flames in a storm. Energy crackled around the forming shapes, arcs of power that made the security officers tighten their grips on their weapons. The lights in the transporter room dimmed, then surged bright enough to make Kirk squint. Then they were there. 2 figures stood on the transporter pads, solid and real and radiating a presence that went beyond mere physical space. The male was taller than Kirk by several inches, broad-shouldered and powerful in a way that suggested capability rather than aggression. His blue suit seemed to be made of some material that caught the light strangely, and the red cape hung from his shoulders with impossible weight. His face was classically handsome. Square jaw, dark hair with a distinctive curl falling across his forehead, blue eyes that held both wariness and hope. The female beside him was younger, perhaps in her early 20s, with blonde hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. Her costume mirrored his but with her own variations, a shorter cape, a red skirt over blue leggings, the same symbol emblazoned proudly across her chest. Her blue eyes swept the transporter room with quick intelligence, cataloging threats and exits in the space of a heartbeat. For a long moment, no one moved. Kirk studied them with the practiced eye of a commander who'd negotiated with Romulans, bargained with Klingon, and talked his way out of more impossible situations than Starfleet liked to acknowledge. These 2 stood with the easy confidence of beings who knew exactly what they were capable of, but there was no arrogance in their posture, only alertness. The male spoke first, his voice deep and steady. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance. We didn't mean to alarm you or your crew." English. Perfect, unaccented English. Kirk filed that impossibility away for later analysis. "I'm Captain James T. Kirk of the United Federation of Planets Starship Enterprise. You're aboard a vessel of Starfleet, representing over 150 member worlds dedicated to peaceful exploration and mutual cooperation." Kirk kept his voice measured, diplomatic. "May I ask who you are and how you came to be in Federation space?" The male glanced at the female, some unspoken communication passing between them, then stepped down from the transporter pad. The security officers tensed, but Kirk raised one hand slightly, a gesture of patience. The man stopped, respecting the implicit boundary. "My name is Kal-El, though I was known by another name where I came from, Clark Kent. This is my cousin, Kara Zor-El." He gestured to the blonde woman, who descended from the pad with fluid grace. "We're Kryptonian. The last survivors of a planet called Krypton, from a reality that's not this one." "Fascinating," Spock said, moving forward with his tricorder already scanning. "You're claiming to be from a parallel dimension?" Kara nodded, her expression guarded but not hostile. "Our escape pods were designed to carry us to safety when Krypton was dying. Something went wrong, or right, depending on how you look at it. We were caught in some kind of dimensional tear. One moment we were in our universe, the next," she spread her hands, Here. Those pods were Kryptonian technology? Kirk asked. The energy signatures we detected? The pods were charged with the energy of Krypton's sun, a red giant in its final stages, Kal-El explained. They were meant to sustain us in stasis during long-distance space travel. But the transition between realities, it drained most of that stored energy. We're recovering, but slowly. McCoy had been circling the pair with the suspicious eye of a doctor who'd seen too many exotic diseases and alien physiologies to take anything at face value. Recovering? You two were floating in hard vacuum without suits. I'd say you're doing just fine. We're powered by solar radiation, Kara said. Yellow sun radiation, specifically. Our cells absorb and convert it into energy that gives us certain abilities. But this universe's stellar radiation has different properties than what we're used to. It's taking time for our bodies to adapt. Spock's tricorder whistled with data. Captain, their cellular structure is indeed absorbing electromagnetic radiation at extraordinary rates. Their bodies are essentially biological solar collectors operating at efficiency levels that violate several principles of thermodynamics. The amount of energy they're processing should generate enough heat to incinerate them from within, yet they maintain normal humanoid body temperature. It's as if the laws of physics bend around them. We've heard that before, Kal-El said with a slight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Where we come from, people called us many things. Heroes. Aliens. Gods. We were none of those things. We were just trying to help. Kirk heard the weight behind those words, the exhaustion of beings who'd carried too much responsibility for too long. He recognized it because he'd felt it himself, in the quiet hours of Gamma shift when the weight of 800 lives pressed down on his shoulders. Klingon, one of the security officers suddenly said, his voice tight. Captain, if their energy signatures attracted us, they'll have attracted. We know, Kirk interrupted. Mr. Kyle, inform the bridge we have our guests secured. Yellow alert remains in effect. Spock, I want a full analysis of those pods before anyone else gets curious about them. Already underway, Captain. I've dispatched a sensor probe. Kirk turned back to Kal-El and Kara. I don't know what your intentions are or what you're capable of beyond surviving in space and generating enough power to light a starbase. But you've materialized in a region of space that's contested by three major powers, the Federation, the Klingon Empire, and the Romulan Star Empire. Your presence here, your abilities, they're going to attract attention. The kind of attention that starts wars. We don't want that, Kara said quickly. We just want to understand where we are and if there's any way to get home. Home to a dead planet? McCoy asked, not unkindly. The pain that crossed both their faces was answer enough. Kal-El straightened, and Kirk saw the resolve settle over him like armor. Krypton is gone. We've accepted that. But there were others from our world, people in different cities, research stations, colonies. If we're in a parallel reality, maybe there's a version of Krypton here that didn't die. Maybe we can find others like us. Or maybe you're truly alone, Spock observed with Vulcan directness. The silence that followed was broken by the ship's intercom. Bridge to Captain Kirk. Kirk moved to the wall panel. Kirk here. Sulu's voice carried tension. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a Klingon D-7 battle cruiser on intercept course, bearing 273 Mark V. ETA 22 minutes. They're hailing us. Kirk exchanged glances with Spock. 22 minutes. The Klingon had detected the energy signatures and were already moving to investigate. Of course they were. Two beings with power equivalent to starships would be of immense strategic value to the Empire, potential weapons, potential threats, or potential allies in their eternal quest for glory and conquest. I'll be right there. Kirk out. He turned back to Kal-El and Kara. It seems we're about to have company. The Klingon are a warrior race, honor-bound, aggressive, and very interested in displays of strength. They're going to want to know what you are and what you can do. Will they attack? Kara asked. That depends on a lot of factors, including how this conversation goes. Kirk studied them both. I need to know, what exactly are your abilities? What can you do? Kal-El and Kara exchanged another look, and Kirk saw the hesitation there. They'd been burned before by revealing too much, trusting too freely. He understood that instinct. We're stronger than we should be, Kal-El said finally. Fast. Durable. We can fly, see through solid objects, hear across vast distances. We can generate heat with our vision, freeze things with our breath. We're not invulnerable, there are things that can hurt us, but we're hard to stop when we're at full strength. And currently? Spock asked. 70, maybe 80%, Kara admitted. Getting stronger as we absorb more solar radiation from your ship's lighting and the nearby star. Give us another day or two and we'll be back to full capacity. McCoy whistled low. Jim, if the Klingon get wind of two beings who can fly through space and go toe-to-toe with a starship, they'll want them, Kirk finished. Either as allies or neutralized as threats. And they won't take no for an answer. Kal-El stepped forward, his blue eyes meeting Kirk's with unwavering intensity. Captain Kirk, we don't know your universe, your laws, your politics. But we know right from wrong. We know what it means to protect people who can't protect themselves. If the Klingon you're describing are hostile, if they threaten your ship or your crew, we'll help you. Not because we owe you, but because it's the right thing to do. Kirk felt something shift in the room, a recognition of kindred spirits, perhaps. These two were strangers in the most absolute sense, aliens from another reality entirely. But they spoke his language in more ways than one. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Kirk said. But I appreciate the offer. For now, I need you both to stay in this section. We have guest quarters that can be secured. Security will remain posted outside, not because you're prisoners, but because I need to know where you are if this situation deteriorates. Understood, Kara said. Kirk gestured to the security officers. Escort our guests to VIP quarters on Deck 5. See that they're comfortable. Spock, McCoy, with me. As the security team led Kal-El and Kara toward the corridor, the Kryptonian turned back. Captain. Thank you for not shooting first and asking questions later. Where we come from, that was a refreshingly rare approach. Kirk allowed himself a small smile. Where I come from, Mr. Kent, it's called Starfleet Protocol. Though I've been known to bend the rules when the situation calls for it. The transporter room doors slid closed behind the Kryptonians, leaving Kirk alone with his senior officers. Bones, what's your medical assessment? McCoy shook his head slowly. Jim, those two aren't just humanoid. They're genetically human, or so close to it that my tricorder can't tell the difference. Parallel evolution doesn't work that way. It's as if someone took Earth humans and rebuilt them from the ground up to be living weapons. Not weapons, Doctor, Spock corrected. Tools, perhaps. Or more accurately, a species adapted to survive extreme circumstances through biological enhancement. Their account of Krypton's destruction suggests their entire civilization faced extinction. These abilities may have been naturally evolved or artificially induced as a survival mechanism. Either way, Kirk said, we now have two superpowered aliens aboard during a potential Klingon encounter near the neutral zone. Recommendations? We need to keep them hidden, McCoy said immediately. If the Klingon find out. They already know something's out here, Bones. Those energy signatures lit up every sensor grid within 3 light years. The question isn't whether the Klingon knows something unusual happened, it's whether they know what it was and what they'll do about it. Spock raised an eyebrow. The logical course would be to hand them over to Starfleet Command for proper evaluation and diplomatic processing. Two beings with their capabilities represent a significant security concern. They also represent two people who've lost everything, Kirk countered. Their world, their reality, everyone they've ever known. I'm not going to treat them like weapons to be catalogued and controlled. Even if it means war with the Klingon Empire. Kirk met Spock's gaze steadily. Even then. Now let's get to the bridge before our Klingon friends arrive. The bridge of the Enterprise hummed with controlled tension as Kirk settled into the command chair. The view screen displayed the approaching Klingon vessel, a D-7 battle cruiser, its angular hull bristling with disruptor banks and torpedo launchers. The ship moved with predatory grace, closing the distance at high impulse speed. Status, Mr. Sulu. Klingon vessel entering standard hailing range, Captain. They're reducing speed to match our position. On screen. The image shifted from the Klingon ship to the interior of its bridge. The Klingon commander who appeared was exactly what Kirk had expected, dark eyes burning with intelligence and barely restrained aggression, a ridged forehead that spoke of generations of warrior breeding, and the sash of a ship's captain across his chest. Behind him, the Klingon bridge crew worked their stations with military precision. I am Commander Koloth of the Imperial Klingon Cruiser Divisor, the Klingon announced, his voice carrying the guttural accent of his native tongue filtered through the universal translator. Captain Kirk. We meet again under curious circumstances. Kirk leaned forward slightly. He'd encountered Koloth before, a capable commander, more pragmatic than most Klingon but no less dangerous for it. Commander Koloth. What brings you to this sector? Kolotha's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. The same thing that brought you, Captain. Unusual energy readings. Signatures powerful enough to register across multiple star systems. My science officer detected two objects materializing in Federation space, objects that should not exist according to any known technology. His eyes narrowed. Objects that are no longer visible on our sensors. Tell me, Captain, where did they go? Kirk kept his expression neutral. We're investigating the phenomenon ourselves. Our science department is analyzing the sensor data. How convenient that the phenomenon occurred within transporter range of the Enterprise. Kolotha's tone hardened. I am not a fool, Kirk. Those readings indicated life signs, powerful life signs. You beamed something aboard your vessel. I want to know what. That's Federation business, Commander. This is Federation space. Disputed space, Koloth corrected. We are less than 2 light-years from the neutral zone. These readings could indicate a new weapon, a new technology, or a new threat. The Empire has a right to know what transpired here. Spock spoke from his science station, his voice carefully measured. Commander Koloth, our sensors detected spatial anomalies consistent with a dimensional rift, a naturally occurring phenomenon. Whatever emerged from that rift posed no threat to your vessel or the Empire. Your word, Vulcan. Kolotha's laugh was sharp. The Empire does not trust Starfleet's assurances, especially not regarding weapons or power sources. We detected energy output equivalent to a starship's warp core emanating from 2 human-sized objects. That is not natural. That is a weapon. Kirk felt the situation sliding toward confrontation. Koloth wasn't posturing, he genuinely believed the Enterprise had acquired something of strategic value. And in a way, he wasn't wrong. 2 beings who could generate starship-level power, survive in vacuum, and fly through space represented military assets beyond anything in the current balance of power. Commander, I give you my word, what we recovered poses no threat to the Klingon Empire. They're refugees, survivors from a destroyed world. They have no interest in your territory or your people. They. Koloth leaned forward, his interest sharpening. So you admit you have living beings aboard? Beings with this level of power. Captain Kirk, you must understand how this appears to the Empire. The Federation acquires superpowered beings at the edge of the neutral zone, refuses to explain their nature or capabilities, and expects us to simply accept this development. Unacceptable. The turbolift doors opened and Dr. McCoy stepped onto the bridge, moving quickly to Kirk's side. Jim, we have a situation. Our guests have requested permission to speak with you. They can hear what's happening up here, some kind of enhanced hearing. They're concerned this is going to escalate. Kirk kept his eyes on Koloth but addressed McCoy quietly. Tell them to stay where they are. This is under control. Is it? McCoy's voice dropped lower. Because it sounds like we're about to have a diplomatic incident that could start a war. On the view screen, Kolotha's expression had shifted, not quite hostile, but calculatingly aggressive. Captain Kirk, I am prepared to offer a compromise. Allow a Klingon science team to board the Enterprise and verify the nature of what you have acquired. If they are truly harmless refugees as you claim, we will withdraw and report this to the High Council as a minor anomaly. If they are something more. Then what, Commander? You'll demand we hand them over to the Empire? Turn living beings into Klingon property? Into assets, Captain. The Empire respects strength. If these beings are warriors of capability, they could find honor serving the Klingon fleet. We do not enslave, we offer glory. Kirk's jaw tightened. He'd heard similar rhetoric before, the Klingon philosophy that reduced everything to military utility and combat prowess. They're not interested in your glory, Koloth. They've just lost their entire civilization. They need time to. The ship shuddered. Captain. Chekhov's voice cracked with alarm. The Klingon vessel has locked weapons on us. Disruptors charging. Kirk surged to his feet. Shields up. Red alert. You misunderstand, Captain, Koloth said, his tone now ice-cold. That was not an attack. That was a demonstration of seriousness. You will permit a Klingon boarding party, or I will interpret your refusal as a hostile act concealing a military threat. The Empire takes such threats very seriously. The bridge lights shifted to crimson as the alert klaxons wailed. Kirk's mind raced through options. He could refuse and risk combat, the Enterprise could likely defeat a single D7, but it would mean Klingon deaths and potential escalation. He could allow the boarding party and hope Koloth would honor his word, but exposing Kal-El and Kara to Klingon scrutiny felt like betrayal. Or he could. Captain Kirk. Kal-El's voice came through the bridge speakers, calm and resolute. I'm sorry, but we can't let people die because of us. We're coming to the bridge. Belay that order. Kirk snapped. Security, SEAL Deck 5. Authorization Kirk Alpha 1. Jim, they're not in their quarters, McCoy said quietly. They haven't been for about 30 seconds. The turbolift doors opened. Kal-El and Kara stepped onto the bridge, and every head turned. Kirk saw his crew's reactions, Sulu's hand dropping to his phaser, Uhura's eyes widening, Chekhov's mouth opening in shock. Even Spock's eyebrow climbed higher than usual. The two Kryptonians stood there in their colorful suits and flowing capes, looking like something out of ancient mythology transported to the stars. How the hell did you get past security? Kirk demanded. We moved quickly, Kara said simply. Your guards never saw us. We didn't hurt anyone. On the view screen, Kolotha's expression had transformed from calculated aggression to naked fascination. His eyes swept over the two figures, cataloging every detail. Impossible. The turbolift was in use. Sensors show no transport. We took the access shaft, Kal-El said, addressing the Klingon commander directly. At high speed. Captain Kirk, with respect, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But we've been through this before in our own universe, people fighting over us, treating us like weapons or threats. It always ends badly. Better to address this directly. Kirk wanted to argue, to maintain control of the situation, but he recognized the futility. These two had abilities that made conventional security measures meaningless. They'd crossed hard vacuum and punched through dimensional barriers. A few armed guards and locked doors weren't going to stop them if they chose to act. Commander Koloth, Kal-El continued, "My name is Kal-El. This is Kara Zor-El. We're the last survivors of a planet called Krypton from a parallel reality. We have no allegiance to the Federation, the Klingon Empire, or any other power in this universe. We're not weapons, we're not soldiers for hire, and we're not interested in your wars. We just want to understand where we are and find a way to live in peace." Koloth studied them with the intensity of a warrior assessing opponents. "You survived in vacuum. You moved through a Federation starship faster than their sensors could track. You radiate power like nothing I have encountered in 20 years of service. And you claim to want peace." He laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Klingon respects strength, not passivity. You have power. You will use it, whether for the Federation or the Empire or yourselves. The only question is which path leads to greater glory." "We're not looking for glory," Kara said, her voice hardening. "We're looking for a home." "Then you are fools." Kolotha's contempt was palpable. "In this galaxy, the strong dominate or die. The Federation teaches weakness disguised as principle. Their Prime Directive forbids them from using their power to shape the universe according to their will. You have power beyond anything I have seen. Will you waste it on Federation philosophy? Or will you embrace what you are and take your place among the warriors of the Empire?" Kirk saw the trap being laid. Koloth was smart. He knew he couldn't capture or control these two through force. Instead, he was offering them validation, purpose, a place in a culture that revered martial prowess. For beings who'd lost everything, the temptation might be strong. "Commander," Kirk interjected, "what you're describing isn't honor, it's exploitation. These people have been through trauma. They need time to be corrupted by Federation softness." Koloth cut him off. "Captain Kirk, you and I have faced each other before. You are a capable commander, and I respect your cunning. But you serve a government that fears its own strength. These beings, these Kryptonians, they could reshape the balance of power in this quadrant. They could end wars with their presence, enforce peace through strength. Instead, you would hide them, study them, restrain them with your regulations and your Prime Directive. We would protect them," Kirk shot back. "Give them freedom to choose their own path without pressure from either side." "Freedom is the luxury of the weak," Koloth replied. "Power demands purpose." Kal-El moved to stand directly in front of the viewscreen, his blue eyes meeting Kolotha's dark gaze. "I've heard speeches like yours before, Commander. I've met conquerors and tyrants who believed might made right. I've watched civilizations fall because they valued power over compassion. Your philosophy is seductive. It offers simple answers to complex questions. But it's wrong." The bridge went silent. Even the background hum of the Enterprise seemed to quiet as everyone waited for Kolotha's response. The Klingon commander's face darkened, his hand dropping to the DK Tog blade at his belt, an unconscious gesture of rising anger. "You dare lecture me on philosophy?" "I'm not judging anyone," Kal-El said calmly. "I'm telling you what I've learned through hard experience. Power without restraint leads to destruction. I've seen it happen. I won't be part of it again, not for you, not for the Federation, not for anyone." Kara stepped beside her cousin, presenting a united front. "We're not your weapons, Commander. We're not anyone's weapons. If you want to test that theory, we can demonstrate exactly why that would be a mistake. But I don't think anyone on this bridge wants that outcome." Kolotha's expression flickered, calculation warring with pride. Kirk recognized the moment, the razor's edge between escalation and reason. The Klingon was being challenged, his authority and his empire's superiority questioned by beings who clearly possessed the power to back up their words. Fascinating, Spock observed quietly from his station. Commander Koloth is experiencing a logical paradox. He cannot capture or coerce beings of superior capability, yet retreating without asserting dominance would be perceived as weakness within Klingon culture. Not helping, Spock, Kirk muttered. Then Koloth did something Kirk didn't expect, he smiled. Not a cruel smile or a mocking one, but something approaching genuine amusement. You have courage, Kryptonian. Perhaps you are not entirely without honor, despite your peaceful rhetoric. He leaned back in his command chair. Very well. I will report to the High Council that the Federation has encountered extradimensional refugees of significant power. I will recommend observation rather than immediate action. But understand this, his voice hardened again, the Empire will be watching. If you prove to be threats, if you aid the Federation in actions against the Empire, if you interfere in matters of Klingon honor, you will find that we are not so easily discouraged. We're not looking for enemies, Kal-El said. We've had enough of those for several lifetimes. Then we understand each other. Captain Kirk, it seems your refugees have more spine than I gave them credit for. Perhaps there is hope for them yet. The view screen flickered. Kapla, Captain. Until we meet again. The transmission ended, replaced by the image of the Klingon ship. It hung there for several long seconds, weapons still charged, before slowly turning away. The D-7's impulse engines flared as it accelerated toward the neutral zone, leaving the Enterprise behind. Kirk exhaled slowly, tension draining from his shoulders. Stand down, red alert. Yellow alert remains in effect. Mr. Sulu, maintain current position and monitor that ship until it crosses into the neutral zone. Aye, Captain. Kirk turned to face Kal-El and Kara, his expression a mixture of relief and frustration. That was an enormous risk. If Koloth had decided to attack. He wouldn't have, Kara interrupted. We could hear his heartbeat, smell the adrenaline in his blood. He was testing us, not preparing for combat. If we'd hidden, if we'd let you fight over us, he would have seen weakness. Klingon respects strength and directness. We gave him both. She's right, Spock confirmed. Commander Kolotha's biometric readings indicated elevated stress but not combat preparation. His challenge was primarily psychological. McCoy moved closer to the two Kryptonians, studying them with renewed interest. You could hear his heartbeat through a view-screen transmission across space. Our hearing is very acute, Kal-El admitted. Probably more than you're comfortable with. We've been trying not to eavesdrop, but when your entire ship went to red alert. How much can you hear? Kirk asked. Kara glanced at her cousin, then back to Kirk. Right now. Everything. Every conversation, every mechanical sound, every heartbeat on this ship. It's overwhelming, honestly. Where we came from, we learned to filter it out, focus on what's important. Here, everything sounds slightly different. The briefing room felt smaller with Kal-El and Kara seated at the conference table. Kirk had gathered his senior staff, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, and Uhura, along with the two Kryptonians for what promised to be the most unusual strategic session of his career. Through the viewport, stars drifted past as the Enterprise maintained position at the edge of Federation space, sensors sweeping for any sign of Romulan activity. Kirk stood at the head of the table, hands resting on the smooth surface. Let's start with what we know. Spock, your analysis of the Kryptonian pods. The Vulcan activated the briefing room's display screen, showing detailed sensor readings and three-dimensional reconstructions of the crystalline vessels. The pods are technological marvels. They utilize a form of energy manipulation that does not conform to known physical principles. The crystalline structure appears to be both organic and technological, what I would term bioengineered matter. They were designed for long-duration stasis during interstellar travel, powered by stored solar radiation from Krypton's red sun. Red sun? Scotty leaned forward, his engineering instincts engaged. But you said they're powered by yellow sun radiation now. What's the difference? Kal-El spoke, his voice carrying the weight of explanation he'd clearly given many times before. Krypton orbited a red sun. Under that radiation, Kryptonians were normal. Strong by some species standards, but mortal. Yellow sun radiation, like your Earth's sun or the star this ship is near, triggers a reaction in our cells. We become something more. How much more? McCoy asked bluntly. Kara met the doctor's gaze. We can lift approximately 800 tons at full strength. We can fly at speeds approaching your warp velocities, though not beyond light speed without external assistance. Our bodies are dense enough to resist most conventional weapons. Bullets, blades, energy weapons below certain thresholds. We can see across most of the electromagnetic spectrum, hear across vast distances, and survive in environments that would kill most humanoids instantly. The room fell silent as the senior staff absorbed the implications. Scotty whistled low. Mother of mercy. You're living starships. We're people, Kal-El corrected gently. People with abilities we didn't choose but learned to live with. In our universe, we used these powers to help others. To save lives, prevent disasters, stop those who would harm the innocent. We're not soldiers or weapons. We're just, us. The philosophical distinction may be lost on the Klingon and Romulans, Spock observed. To them, you represent strategic assets of incalculable value. The ability to deploy operatives who can survive in space, move faster than most vessels, and potentially disable starships through direct physical action would shift the balance of power significantly. Kirk resumed his seat. Which brings us to the central problem. We're sitting at the edge of Federation space with two beings who've just attracted the attention of two hostile empires. Koloth may have withdrawn, but he's reporting to the High Council. The Romulans are undoubtedly analyzing the same sensor data. We need options. We could head deeper into Federation territory, Uhura suggested. Starbase 11 is 6 days away at Warp 6. If we can reach it, we'd have additional ships for protection and Starfleet Command could make the final decision on what to do. But 6 days is a long time, Scotty countered. The Romulans could intercept us anywhere along that route. And if they do, we'll be fighting in Federation space. That could be exactly what they want, an excuse for escalation. McCoy drummed his fingers on the table. What about the Prime Directive angle? If Kal-El and Kara here are from another dimension, they're not technically Federation citizens. We can't force them to go to Starbase 11 or anywhere else. They're free to leave whenever they want. In their crystalline pods? Kirk asked. Spock, are those vessels capable of independent travel? Negative, Captain. The pods are depleted. They would need approximately 48 hours of direct exposure to solar radiation to recharge sufficiently for another dimensional transit attempt, assuming such a transit is even possible without the specific conditions that brought them here initially. The probability of successfully returning to their origin universe is less than 0.03%. Kara's expression tightened at that number, and Kirk saw Kal-El reach over to squeeze her hand briefly, a gesture of comfort between family members who'd already lost too much. So we're stuck here, Kara said quietly. In a universe where we don't exist, where we don't belong, and where our mere presence starts interstellar incidents. You belong wherever you choose to make your place, Kirk said firmly. The Federation is built on principles of diversity and acceptance. You're refugees, and that entitles you to protection under Federation law. The question is what kind of protection you need and what you're willing to accept. Kal-El straightened in his chair. Captain Kirk, I appreciate the sentiment. But we've lived with these abilities long enough to know what happens when governments try to protect us. They study us. They test us. They try to weaponize what we can do. Eventually, they either try to control us or fear us. Sometimes both. That's not how the Federation operates, Uhura protested. Isn't it? Kara's voice carried an edge. Your Mr. Spock has been scanning us constantly since we came aboard. Your Dr. McCoy analyzed our cellular structure within minutes of meeting us. Every person on this ship knows what we can do, what we are. How long before someone in your Starfleet command decides we're too dangerous to leave unsupervised? How long before we become classified assets instead of people? The accusation hung in the air. Kirk wanted to deny it, to insist that the Federation was different, but he'd seen enough of Starfleet bureaucracy to know Kara had a point. Command had classified species before, restricted contact with powerful entities, deemed certain technologies too dangerous for general knowledge. Two beings with the power to challenge starships would absolutely fall under intense scrutiny. You're right, Kirk admitted, and saw surprise flicker across both Kryptonians' faces. Command will want to study you, assess you, probably restrict your movements until they feel confident you're not a threat. That's the reality of bureaucracy meeting the unknown. But here's what I can offer, the Enterprise is on a 5-year mission of exploration. We're operating at the edge of known space, often weeks or months from direct Starfleet oversight. I have significant autonomy in how I run this ship and who I allow aboard. If you want time to figure out where you fit in this universe, time away from the microscope of command scrutiny, I can provide that. In exchange for what? Kal-El asked, his voice wary. In exchange for honesty and cooperation. You don't hide things from me, you don't take unilateral action that puts my ship or crew at risk, and if the situation requires it, you help us. Not as weapons, but as people with abilities that could save lives. The Federation doesn't conscript, we're all volunteers. I'm offering you a place among volunteers. Spock raised an eyebrow. Captain, you're proposing to bring them on as crew members. Temporary civilian specialists, Kirk clarified. Assigned to the Enterprise for the duration of our current mission. It would give them legal status within Federation space, protection under Starfleet regulations, and time to acclimate to this universe without immediate pressure from command. It would also give me 2 very capable people who could make a difference in first contact situations, rescue operations, or defensive actions. And if command doesn't approve? Scotty asked. Kirk smiled grimly. Then I'll have a very interesting conversation with Admiral Nogura in about 6 months when we're scheduled to return to Starbase. By then, hopefully we'll have demonstrated that Kal-El and Kara are assets to Federation ideals, not threats to them. McCoy shook his head with grudging admiration. Jim, you're proposing to hide 2 superpowered aliens from Starfleet Command while using them as your personal emergency response team. That's either brilliant or career suicide. Sometimes they're the same thing, Bones. Kara looked at her cousin, and Kirk watched another silent conversation pass between them. Whatever they were communicating, and he suspected their enhanced senses allowed for very subtle exchanges. It concluded with Kal-El turning back to Kirk. Captain, we appreciate the offer. We genuinely do. But we need to be clear about something, we won't be controlled. We won't follow orders that violate our principles, and we won't stand by while innocent people suffer because of regulations or politics. The Prime Directive you mentioned earlier, we've heard you discuss it. The idea that you don't interfere with less advanced civilizations, even when they're dying or suffering. We can't accept that. We won't. The room tensed. The Prime Directive was the cornerstone of Federation philosophy, the regulation that prevented Starfleet from becoming conquerors or saviors imposing their will on developing worlds. It was also the source of endless moral debate, the rule that had cost lives and saved civilizations in equal measure. Kirk leaned back, considering his words carefully. The Prime Directive exists for good reasons. We've seen what happens when advanced civilizations interfere with developing ones: cultural contamination, dependency, corruption of natural development. We've watched species evolve and grow in ways we never could have predicted. The Prime Directive protects that growth. And when that growth leads to extinction? Kal-El challenged. When you watch a planet die from a preventable disaster because helping would violate your rules? What then, Captain? Then we make the hardest choices of our lives, Kirk admitted quietly. And sometimes we choose to break the rules anyway, knowing the consequences. I've violated the Prime Directive 3 times in my career. Each time, I believed the preservation of life outweighed the regulation. Each time, I faced court-martial proceedings. Each time, I'd make the same choice again. That seemed to surprise them both. Kara tilted her head. You broke your own rules. Rules are guidelines for complex situations, not absolutes carved in stone. The Prime Directive exists to prevent casual interference, not to handcuff us when genocide or extinction are imminent. The difference is accountability. When I violate orders, I face consequences. I explain my reasoning, accept judgment, and live with the results. That's the balance between power and responsibility. And if we disagree with your judgment? Kara pressed. If we see a situation where we believe action is necessary and you order us to stand down? Kirk met her gaze steadily. Then we have a conversation, and I listen to your perspective. If I'm convinced, we act together. If not, you have a choice: trust my experience and judgment, or act independently and face whatever consequences follow. I won't promise you'll always agree with my decisions, but I'll promise to always hear you out before making them. Kal-El was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. That's more than we expected, actually. Most authority figures don't admit to breaking rules or invite disagreement. Most authority figures haven't survived 3 years exploring unknown space, McCoy interjected. Jim's still alive because he knows when to follow the book and when to throw it out the airlock. Uhura cleared her throat. Captain, there's another consideration. If Kal-El and Kara are aboard as civilian specialists, they'll need quarters, access to facilities, integration into crew rotations. The crew will need to know who they are and what they can do. That's a lot of people keeping a very big secret. The Enterprise crew has kept bigger secrets, Kirk said. And more importantly, I trust them. We've been through situations that would have broken most ships' companies. They'll understand. There's still the matter of the Romulans, Spock pointed out. They will not simply observe and report as Commander Koloth did. The Romulan approach to unknown variables is elimination or acquisition. They will attempt to capture Kal-El and Kara for study or analysis, or failing that, destroy them to prevent the Federation from gaining an advantage. Can they? Scotty asked bluntly, looking at the Kryptonians. Could Romulan weapons actually hurt you? Kara's expression grew somber. We don't know. In our universe, we learned our limits through painful experience. There were weapons that could hurt us. Kryptonite, a radioactive element from our destroyed homeworld, magic in its various forms, certain energy frequencies, overwhelming physical force. We're not invulnerable, just very difficult to hurt with conventional means. Romulan plasma weapons operate at extremely high energy outputs, Spock mused. A direct hit from a bird of prey's main disruptor might inflict damage, particularly if you're not at full strength. Their cloaking technology would also present tactical complications. You cannot defend against threats you cannot perceive. Actually, Kal-El said, our vision isn't limited to the visible spectrum. We can see infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray wavelengths. If a cloaked ship generates heat or radiation, we might be able to detect it. Scotty's eyes lit up. You can see through cloaking devices? Maybe. We'd have to test it. Cloaking technology isn't something we encountered in our universe. Fascinating, Spock said, and Kirk could practically see the Vulcan's mind cataloging possibilities. If accurate, that ability alone would be of significant strategic value. The Romulans' primary advantage is stealth. Negating that advantage would make us even bigger targets, Kara finished. Yeah, we've figured that out. Kirk stood, decision crystallizing. Here's what we're going to do. Kal-El, Kara, you're officially civilian specialists assigned to the Enterprise for observation and cultural integration. I'll file the paperwork with Starfleet Command, heavily redacted, emphasizing that you're refugees under Federation protection. We'll continue our patrol route, but stay alert for Romulan activity. In the meantime, you two work with Spock and Scotty to understand your capabilities in this universe. Controlled testing, nothing that risks the ship or crew. And when the Romulans come? Kara asked. Then we find out exactly what you can do, Kirk said grimly. And hope it's enough. The meeting adjourned, but as the senior staff filed out, Kirk caught Kal-El's arm. A word, Mr. Kent. The Kryptonian waited as the room emptied. Kirk studied him, this being who looked human, spoke human languages, and radiated power beyond anything in Federation records. A refugee from a dead world and a dead universe, trying to find purpose in a reality that hadn't asked for him. You said in our universe you were called heroes, Kirk began. What did that mean, exactly? Kal-El's expression grew distant. It meant we saved people. Stopped disasters. Prevented wars when we could, fought in them when we had to. It meant we were symbols, of hope, of possibility, of the idea that someone would always be there when things got dark. It was exhausting and necessary and sometimes terrible. But it was also the best thing we ever did. And here? In this universe? Here, we're strangers. Unknown variables. Potential threats or assets depending on who's evaluating us. Here, we're starting over without any of the context or relationships that made what we did possible. Kal-El met Kirk's gaze. I'm not sure we can be heroes here, Captain. I'm not even sure we should try. Kirk nodded slowly. Heroes aren't born, Mr. Kent. They're made by the choices they face and the principles they refuse to compromise. The uniform I wear, the oath I took, they don't make me heroic. What makes the difference is choosing to act when action is needed, even when it's difficult, even when it costs more than I want to pay. You've already made those choices once. The fact that you're questioning whether to make them again tells me you're exactly the kind of person the Federation needs, whether you wear a uniform or a cape. Kal-El smiled, a genuine expression that softened the godlike bearing. You're a good man, Captain Kirk. I can see why your crew follows you. They follow because I listen and because I'm willing to be wrong. Remember that. You've got power, Mr. Kent, but power's easy. Leadership, trust, cooperation, those are hard. And those are what you'll need to survive in this universe. As Kal-El left the briefing room, Kirk stood alone, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Romulan sensors were analyzing data. Romulan strategists were planning operations. And the Enterprise, through no fault of its own, had become the center of a gathering storm. He touched the intercom. Bridge, this is the captain. Set course for Starbase 11, warp factor 6. And Mr. Chekhov, keep those sensors at maximum range. I want to know if anything comes within 5 light-years of us. Aye, Captain. Kirk took one last look at the stars, then headed for the bridge. 6 days to Starbase 11. 6 days to keep 2 superpowered aliens safe while navigating the political minefields of 3 empires. It was going to be a very long week. The Enterprise sliced through space at warp 6, its nacelles glowing with contained plasma as it drove deeper into Federation territory. 3 days had passed since the encounter with Commander Koloth, 3 days of relative calm that had Kirk's instincts screaming warnings. The Romulans were out there, watching, planning. He could feel it the way a sailor felt approaching storms. In the ship's gymnasium, Kal-El and Kara were discovering the limitations of Starfleet training facilities. Again, Lieutenant Charlene Masters said, her voice strained. She stood at the edge of the sparring mat, tricorder in hand, recording data as Kara performed what should have been a simple strength test. The Kryptonian woman held a standard barbell loaded with every weight plate the gymnasium possessed, easily 2,000 pounds of duranium alloy. She was curling it one-handed, slowly, while discussing Earth literature with Ensign Pavel Chekhov. So in this War and Peace, the Russian characters are heroes? Kara asked, lifting the massive weight without visible effort. Of course. Chekhov beamed with national pride. Tolstoy shows the nobility and strength of Russian spirit during Napoleon's invasion. Is magnificent literature. In our universe, we had similar stories. My cousin read most of them while learning about Earth culture. Kara switched hands, transferring the barbell as easily as passing a datapad. He was always better at the academic side of things. I preferred action. Spock observed from the sidelines, his tricorder humming with constant analysis. Fascinating. Her muscle tissue shows no strain whatsoever. The cellular density remains constant regardless of exertion level. It's as if the weight is distributed across her entire cellular structure rather than concentrated in specific muscle groups. McCoy stood beside him, arms crossed. What you're saying is she could probably lift this entire ship if she had leverage and something to push against. The mathematics suggest that possibility, yes. Though the structural integrity of whatever surface she pushed from would likely fail before her cellular structure did. Across the gymnasium, Kal-El was working with Lieutenant Sulu on speed trials. A section of the gym had been cleared, and Sulu held a stopwatch, his expression somewhere between awe and disbelief. Ready? Sulu called. Kal-El nodded. He stood at one end of the 30-meter course, relaxed and patient. Mark. The Kryptonian blurred. One instant he was stationary, the next he traversed the entire course, stopped, and returned to his starting position. The displacement of air created a sharp crack that made several crew members jump. Sulu stared at his stopwatch. 0.03 seconds. That's impossible. That's faster than most shuttlecraft at impulse. And I'm holding back considerably, Kal-El admitted. At full speed in our universe, I could circle your Earth 7 times in a second. Here, I'm still adapting to the different physical laws. It feels slightly sticky, if that makes sense. Like moving through water instead of air. The dimensional variance, Spock theorized, moving closer. Your cellular structure evolved in a universe with subtly different fundamental constants. Here, those constants create a fractional resistance effect. You're experiencing what amounts to dimensional drag. Will it get better? Kara asked, setting down the barbell finally. It hit the deck with a thunderous clang that echoed through the gym. Your cells are adapting. The efficiency of your solar energy conversion has increased by 12% since you came aboard. Extrapolating current rates, you should reach full acclimation within 72 hours. Just in time for the Romulans to make their move, McCoy muttered. The intercom whistled. Bridge to Dr. McCoy. McCoy moved to the wall panel. McCoy here. Doctor, we're receiving a distress call from a Federation colony, Epsilon Canaris 3. They're reporting a medical emergency, some kind of viral outbreak. Captain Kirk requests you report to the bridge immediately. On my way. McCoy turned to the others. Duty calls. Try not to break anything expensive while I'm gone. As the doctor left, Scotty entered the gymnasium, engineering pad in hand and an excited gleam in his eye. There you are. I've been looking for you too. I've got a proposal about your heat vision. Kal-El and Kara exchanged glances. Heat vision. The focused energy beam you can generate with your eyes. Mr. Spock's tricorder readings show it operates at temperatures exceeding 10,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than most plasma cutters. I'm thinking if we could understand the mechanism, we might be able to develop new applications for ship-mounted weapons or industrial equipment. We're not weapons, Kara said, her tone cooling. Scotty blanched. No, lass. I didn't mean it like that. I meant understanding the physics of it. How do you generate and focus that much energy without burning your own eyes out? It defies thermodynamics. If we could replicate even a fraction of the efficiency in ship systems, we could reduce power consumption across the entire vessel by 15%. Kal-El's expression softened. I appreciate the scientific interest, Mr. Scott, but we don't really understand how it works ourselves. It's instinctive, like breathing or blinking. We focus, the energy releases, and we can control the intensity and width of the beam through concentration. But there must be some biological mechanism. Which we've never fully understood, Kara interrupted. In our universe, scientists studied us for years. They catalogued our abilities, theorized about quantum biology and dimensional energy matrices, but at the end of the day, we were something they couldn't replicate or fully explain. We were anomalies. The gymnasium fell quiet. Spock broke the silence with characteristic Vulcan directness. You find that isolation difficult? It wasn't a question. Kara's shoulders sagged slightly. Wouldn't you? Being the only ones like us, knowing that no matter how much people accept you, you're fundamentally different in ways they can never truly understand. I am half Vulcan, half human, Spock replied. I have spent my entire life belonging fully to neither culture, understood completely by neither species. I am intimately familiar with the isolation you describe. However, I have found that understanding need not be complete to be meaningful. The crew of the Enterprise accepts me not because they comprehend Vulcan logic in its totality, but because they value what I contribute and who I choose to be. Kal-El studied the Vulcan with new appreciation. That's actually helpful. Thank you, Mr. Spock. I merely stated observable facts. The intercom whistled again. Bridge to all senior staff and civilian specialists. Report to briefing room immediately. The group exchanged looks, then filed out of the gymnasium. As they walked the corridors of the Enterprise, crew members stopped to stare at the two Kryptonians. Word had spread, of course, in a crew of 400, secrets were impossible to keep. But rather than fear, Kirk had seen mostly curiosity and fascination in his crew's reactions. They were explorers, after all, trained to embrace the unknown. In the briefing room, Kirk stood with Uhura and Chekhov, a star chart displayed on the main screen showing a yellow dwarf star system with 3 planets. Epsilon Canaris 3, Kirk began as everyone took their seats. Federation colony, population 8,300, established 12 years ago. They're reporting a viral outbreak. 40% of the population infected, mortality rate climbing. They're requesting immediate medical assistance. McCoy leaned forward, doctor's instincts engaged. What kind of virus? Do we have symptom profiles? Fever, respiratory distress, cellular degradation. Their medical staff has never seen anything like it. They're calling it Canaris fever. The colonial governor believes it may be an indigenous pathogen that their initial surveys missed. How long to reach them? Scotty asked. At current speed, 18 hours. But here's the complication. Kirk pressed a control and the star chart zoomed out, revealing a second marker. A Romulan patrol route that passed within 2 light-years of Epsilon Canaris 3. This system is close to the neutral zone. Very close. And Romulan sensor nets in this region are extensive. If we divert to Epsilon Canaris, we'll be visible on their scopes. You think it's a trap, Kara said. I think it's suspicious timing. 3 days after we acquire 2 high-value assets, a medical emergency appears along our route that requires us to slow down and focus our attention on a planetary crisis rather than potential threats. Kirk's jaw tightened. But I can't ignore 8,300 colonists dying because I'm paranoid about Romulan schemes. Even if it is a trap, Kal-El pointed out, those people still need help. Real people with a real medical crisis. You can't abandon them. I don't intend to. But I'm going in with eyes open and shields up. Kirk turned to McCoy. Bones, prepare medical teams. Full biohazard protocols. Whatever this virus is, I don't want it spreading to the Enterprise. Already on it, Jim. Mr. Spock, long-range sensor analysis of Epsilon Canaris 3. I want to know everything, orbital traffic, communications patterns, anything that seems off. Understood, Captain. And what about us? Kara asked. What's our role? Kirk considered. If this is a Romulan operation, they'll strike while we're occupied with the planetary crisis. They might try to disable the ship, board us, or simply eliminate you from long range. Your ability to operate in space makes you our best defense against threats the Enterprise can't counter directly. You want us to patrol the perimeter, Kal-El translated. Act as an early warning system and rapid response force. Exactly. You can move faster than our shuttlecraft, survive in vacuum, and potentially see through cloaking devices. If the Romulans are out there, you're our best chance of detecting them before they strike. And if we find them? Kara's voice carried an edge. Then you signal the Enterprise and fall back. No heroics, no engagements unless absolutely necessary. The Romulans are not like the Klingon, they won't respect your strength or honor your courage. They'll analyze, adapt, and strike at your weaknesses. We don't know what those weaknesses are yet in this universe. Spock raised an eyebrow. Captain, allowing civilian specialists to engage in military reconnaissance operations is highly irregular. This entire situation is irregular, Spock. But those civilian specialists are the most capable combat assets we have if things go wrong. I'd rather have them where they can do some good than locked in quarters waiting for hull breaches. A logical assessment, if unorthodox. The briefing continued with tactical details and contingency plans, but Kirk's attention kept returning to Kal-El and Kara. They sat at the conference table, these beings of godlike power, and listened with the attention of good soldiers. But they weren't soldiers, they were refugees trying to find their place in a universe that kept pushing them toward conflict. After the briefing, Kirk found himself alone with Kal-El in the corridor outside the briefing room. Captain, a word. Kirk nodded, and they walked together toward the observation deck, a quiet space with floor-to-ceiling viewports showing the stars streaking past at warp speed. I wanted to thank you, Kal-El said, for treating us like people rather than weapons. It's been rare in our experience. You keep saying that, people treating you like weapons. What happened in your universe? Kal-El stared out at the passing stars, his reflection ghostly in the transparent aluminum. There was a government agency. They convinced themselves I was a threat, that anyone with my power couldn't be trusted to act in humanity's best interests. They created contingency plans. Kryptonite weapons, red sun radiation generators, scenarios for how to kill me if I ever went rogue. His voice was quiet, controlled, but Kirk heard the pain beneath. They were led by someone I considered a friend. Someone I'd trusted with my life. That trust was betrayed. Yes. And when I discovered the plans, when I confronted them about it, they justified it as necessary. As pragmatic. As protecting humanity from a potential threat that statistically might someday materialize. Kal-El turned to face Kirk. They turned me from a person into a problem to be solved. That's what I'm afraid of here, that no matter how many people we save, how much good we do, eventually someone in your Federation will decide we're too dangerous to allow our continued freedom. Kirk chose his words carefully. I can't promise that won't happen. The Federation has organizations that classify threats, analyze risks, prepare contingencies. Section 31 operates in the shadows doing things Starfleet officially doesn't acknowledge. If they learn about you, they might do exactly what you're describing. That's not reassuring, Captain. I'm not trying to reassure you. I'm trying to be honest. But here's what I can promise, as long as you're under my command, assigned to my ship, I will fight to keep you free. I will argue against every attempt to weaponize or control you. I will burn every bridge I have in Starfleet if necessary. Not because you're powerful, but because you're people, and people deserve the right to choose their own paths. Kal-El studied him for a long moment. You'd sacrifice your career for us? We're strangers, Captain. Aliens from another reality. You're refugees under my protection. That makes you my responsibility. And besides, Kirk smiled slightly, I've been threatening to get court-martialed for years. Might as well make it count. The Kryptonian laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to release some of the tension he'd been carrying. You're an unusual man, Captain Kirk. In our universe, we knew leaders, politicians, military commanders. Very few of them would have made the commitments you just did. Then your universe had a shortage of decent people. This one does too, sometimes. But we're working on it. They stood together in the observation deck, human and Kryptonian, watching the stars blur past. Outside, the universe was vast and full of dangers. But inside the Enterprise, at least for this moment, there was understanding. The intercom whistled. Captain Kirk to the bridge. We're receiving another transmission from Epsilon Canaris 3. The situation has deteriorated. Kirk moved immediately toward the turbolift. On my way. Mr. Kent, get your cousin and prepare for deployment. Something tells me we're about to find out exactly what the Romulans have planned. As the turbolift doors closed, Kirk caught one last glimpse of Kal-El's reflection in the viewport. A being of power and principle, caught between worlds, trying to decide what kind of hero this universe needed. The doors closed, and Kirk ascended to face whatever came next. The bridge of the Enterprise thrummed with urgency as Kirk emerged from the turbolift. The main viewscreen displayed the blue-green world of Epsilon Canaris 3, its continents partially obscured by swirling cloud formations. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, but Kirk knew appearances meant nothing when death moved through populations like wildfire. Report, Kirk commanded, settling into the command chair. Uhura turned from her communications station, her face grave. Captain, the colonial governor reports the infection rate has jumped to 62% in the last 4 hours. They're losing containment. Medical facilities are overwhelmed, and they're setting up emergency treatment centers in schools and warehouses. They're begging for help. Life signs? Kirk asked Spock. The Vulcan's hands moved across his scanner. Reading approximately 8,100 humanoid life signs on the surface. Down from 8,300 12 hours ago. The mortality rate is accelerating, Captain. At current progression, the colony will experience complete population loss within 72 hours. 200 dead already. Kirk felt the weight settle on his shoulders, the burden of command, the mathematics of life and death that every starship captain learned to carry. Mr. Sulu, standard orbit. Shields up, yellow alert. Mr. Chekhov, continuous sensor sweeps. Anything that moves within 10 light-years, I want to know about it. Aye, Captain, both officers responded in unison. The turbolift doors opened and McCoy strode onto the bridge, medical kit in hand and 3 nurses following behind. Jim, I need to get down there now. Every hour we delay means more deaths. Agreed. But Bones, this feels wrong. The timing, the location, the severity. I don't care if it's the Romulan trap of the century, McCoy interrupted, his blue eyes flashing. There are people dying down there. Children, Jim. The governor mentioned children. I didn't become a doctor to stand in orbit calculating probabilities while kids suffocate from respiratory failure. Kirk met his friend's gaze and nodded. McCoy was right. Whatever else was happening, whatever scheme the Romulans might be orchestrating, the plague was real and the dying were real. Take your team down. Full biohazard gear. Mr. Spock, you're with them, I want scientific analysis of this pathogen. Find out where it came from and why it's moving so fast. Captain, Spock said carefully, if I leave the ship, you'll be without your science officer during a potential Romulan encounter. I'll manage. Those people need your analytical mind more than I do right now. Coordinate with Dr. McCoy, find the source, develop a treatment. That's an order. Spock inclined his head. Understood. As the medical team headed for the transporter room, Kirk activated the ship-wide intercom. All hands, this is the captain. We're entering a crisis situation. A Federation colony is experiencing a catastrophic viral outbreak. Medical teams are beaming down to provide assistance. In the meantime, we're operating under the assumption that hostile forces may attempt to exploit our distraction. All personnel remain at yellow alert. Security teams stand ready. And remember, we're Starfleet. We don't abandon people in need, regardless of the danger. Kirk out. The intercom whistled immediately. Transporter room to bridge. Kal-El and Kara reporting as ordered, Captain. Patch them through to the bridge. The view screen split, showing the transporter room where the two Kryptonians stood in their distinctive suits. Behind them, Chief Kyle manned the controls while Dr. McCoy and his team prepared for transport. Mr. Kent, Ms. Zor-El, Kirk began, here's the situation. We're facing a possible Romulan ambush while responding to a genuine medical emergency. I need you to conduct a perimeter sweep. Full three-dimensional coverage, extending out to 10 million kilometers. Look for anything that doesn't belong, cloaked ships, sensor buoys, subspace anomalies, anything. Your enhanced vision might pick up radiation signatures our sensors miss. Kara nodded. How do we communicate with the ship? We're equipping you with communicators tuned to a secure frequency, Kirk replied. They're modified to handle the interference your energy fields generate. Tap the communicator and speak, we'll hear you. Range is limited to about 200,000 kilometers, so don't go beyond that without checking in first. What if we find something? Kal-El asked. Report immediately. Do not engage unless fired upon. If you're fired upon, defend yourselves but try to disable rather than destroy. The Romulans are the enemy right now, but they're not monsters, they're soldiers following orders. Show restraint if possible. Understood, Captain. Scotty's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering. Captain, I'm reading a power fluctuation in the port nacelle. Nothing critical, but I'd like permission to run a diagnostic while we're in orbit. Kirk frowned. How long? 20 minutes, Captain. I can keep warp capability, but we'll be operating at reduced efficiency until I track down the fault. The timing was too convenient. Kirk's instincts screamed warning, but he couldn't ignore a potential warp drive problem, especially not if they needed to make a quick escape. Permission granted. But Scotty, if anything goes wrong, I'll have us back at full power before you can say, Romulan ambush, sir. See that you do. Bridge out. Kirk turned his attention back to the Kryptonians. You have your orders. Stay sharp, stay in communication, and trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. The screen split again, showing the transporter room and the planet simultaneously. McCoy's team energized, their forms dissolving into shimmering light as they beamed down to the colony. Moments later, Kal-El and Kara simply walked off the transporter pad toward the cargo bay. They'd exit through the external airlock rather than risk explosive decompression. Captain, Uhura said, I'm picking up the colonial governor on audio. Patching through. USS Enterprise, we need those medical supplies immediately. The fever is spreading faster than our projections. We've lost containment in 3 districts. People are dying in their homes, in the streets. We need. The voice was male, strained, desperate. A leader watching his world collapse around him. Governor, this is Captain Kirk. Our medical team is on the surface now with Dr. Leonard McCoy, the finest physician in Starfleet. We're also preparing to beam down medical supplies, portable biobeds, and plasma for transfusions. Hold on. Help is here. Thank you, Captain. Thank you. We thought maybe Starfleet had forgotten about us out here on the edge. The Federation never forgets its colonies, Governor. We'll get through this. As the transmission ended, Kirk stood and moved to the science station, taking Spock's place at the sensors. The display showed Epsilon Canaris 3 in detailed relief, population centers marked in blue, the spreading infection zones highlighted in red. 62% infected. The red was consuming the blue like a malignant tide. Captain, Chekhov called from his station, I'm detecting unusual subspace fluctuations bearing 173 Mark 8. Very faint, possibly natural. Or possibly a cloaked ship running silent, Kirk finished. Magnify that sector. Let's see what we're dealing with. The view screen zoomed to the indicated coordinates, showing empty space, or what appeared to be empty space. Stars glittered in the eternal dark, pristine and undisturbed. Captain, the fluctuations have stopped. Nothing on sensors now. Kirk's jaw tightened. They were out there. He knew it the way he knew his own ship, the way he could feel danger before instruments confirmed it. The Romulans were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His communicator chirped. Kal-El to Enterprise. Kirk flipped it open. Kirk here. Report. We've cleared the immediate orbital space. No contacts, no anomalies. We're expanding the search pattern now. Captain, I have a question. What does a cloaked Romulan ship look like to conventional sensors? It doesn't look like anything. That's the point of cloaking. Why? Because Kara and I are seeing something. Heat signatures, about 8 million kilometers out. 3 distinct sources, roughly ship-sized, but no visible vessels and nothing on what we can see of your sensor displays through the bridge viewport. Kirk's blood ran cold. 3 ships. The Romulans had brought 3 ships to this ambush. Can you verify? Are you certain? We're looking right at them, Captain. Infrared radiation, probably from their impulse engines or power generation. They're trying to run cold, but nothing can mask heat completely, not even cloaking devices. They're arranged in a triangle formation, and we're right in the middle. Kirk spun toward Uhura. Lieutenant, hail those coordinates. All frequencies. Tell them they've been detected and to show themselves immediately or be considered hostile. Uhura's hands flew across her panel. Broadcasting now, Captain. No response. Mr. Sulu, move us to put the planet between us and those coordinates. 1/4 impulse. The Enterprise began to turn, its massive hull shifting orientation. On the view screen, the planet rotated into view as they adjusted position. Kara's voice came through the communicator now. Captain, the heat sources are moving. They're adjusting their formation to maintain firing solutions. And something else, we're picking up electromagnetic emissions consistent with weapons charging. I think they're about to. Space erupted with green fire. 3 Romulan birds of prey decloaked simultaneously, their distinctive raptor-painted hulls materializing as their weapons discharged. Plasma torpedoes streaked toward the Enterprise, emerald death riding waves of superheated matter. Shields! Kirk shouted. The torpedoes impacted milliseconds later, massive detonations that sent shockwaves through the ship's superstructure. The bridge lights flickered as power diverted to deflector shields. Sparks cascaded from ruptured conduits. Shields holding at 73%, Sulu reported, his voice tight. But Captain, they caught us during the turn. Our ventral shields took the full force. Return fire. Full phasers, photon torpedoes. The Enterprise's phaser bank swiveled, lancing out with brilliant blue energy. Two of the Romulan ships peeled away, their superior maneuverability allowing them to evade. The third ship wasn't as fortunate. Phasers raked across its port side, and Kirk saw the satisfying flash of failing shields. But 3 against 1 was impossible odds, especially when caught by surprise. "Captain." Chekhov's voice cracked. 2 more ships decloaking. 5 total contacts. 5. The Romulans had committed 5 ships to this operation. Kirk's mind raced through tactical scenarios and found nothing good. The Enterprise could handle 2, maybe 3 Romulan vessels in a straight fight. 5 was suicide. "Kal-El, Kara," Kirk spoke into the communicator, "we're engaged. 5 hostiles, full combat spread. I need you to." "We see them, Captain." Kal-El's voice was calm, almost eerily so. "We're moving to intercept. Kara, take the 2 on the port side. I'll handle starboard and ventral." "Wait," Kirk started, "you can't take on Starship-class vessels." He never finished the sentence. Through the view screen, he saw 2 streaks of blue and red. Kal-El and Kara moving at velocities that blurred their forms. They split apart, each targeting their designated Romulan vessels with impossible speed. Kara reached the first bird of prey before it could complete its evasive turn. She impacted the ship's hull near the starboard nacelle, a humanoid figure colliding with a vessel massing thousands of tons. Kirk expected to see her bounce off or disintegrate against the shields. Instead, the Romulan ship lurched sideways, its entire trajectory altered by the impact. Sparks and atmosphere vented from the collision point as Kara tore through the outer hull like it was paper. "Impossible," Sulu breathed. Kal-El was even more direct. He flew straight at one of the starboard vessels, and Kirk saw the Romulan commander's mistake in real time. The ship fired disruptors, brilliant green beams designed to reduce starship hulls to molten slag. The energy beams converged on Kal-El's position. The Kryptonian flew straight through them. The disruptor beams washed over him like water, and he didn't even slow down. He reached the Romulan vessel and grabbed the forward edge of its port nacelle. Then, impossibly, he pulled. The Romulan bird of prey flipped, its entire mass rotating end over end as Kal-El redirected its momentum with casual strength. The ship spun out of control, its crew undoubtedly thrown about inside as artificial gravity struggled to compensate. "Captain," Uhura said, her voice filled with awe, "I'm receiving panic transmissions from the Romulan ships. They're calling for retreat. They're saying the Federation has unleashed demons." Kirk watched through the view screen as Kara emerged from inside the first Romulan ship she'd hit, trailing sparks and debris. The vessel listed badly, atmosphere streaming from multiple hull breaches. She'd gone through it, literally through the ship, and emerged on the other side. "All hands, cease fire," Kirk ordered. "Let them retreat. We've made our point." The 3 damaged Romulan ships limped away, their cloaking devices activating to hide their retreat. The 2 undamaged vessels hesitated, their commanders undoubtedly weighing honor against survival. Survival won. They cloaked and withdrew, leaving the Enterprise alone in orbit. Silence filled the bridge. Every crew member stared at the view screen where moments before, 5 Romulan ships had threatened to destroy them. Now there was only empty space and 2 figures floating in the void, Kal-El and Kara, unharmed and waiting for instructions. "Captain," Sulu finally said, "what exactly are those 2? Kirk sank back into his command chair, mind reeling from what he'd just witnessed. "Mr. Sulu, I'm not entirely sure. But I'm very glad they're on our side." His communicator chirped. "Kal-El to Enterprise. We're reading 5 Romulan vessels retreating at high warp. Do you want us to pursue?" "Negative," Kirk replied. "Return to the ship. And Mr. Kent? Impressive work. Just doing what needed to be done, Captain. We're on our way back." As the 2 Kryptonians flew back toward the Enterprise, Kirk allowed himself a moment of relief. The Romulan ambush had failed. The trap had sprung, and the Enterprise had survived, thanks to two refugees from another universe who'd proven exactly how valuable they could be. But the relief was short-lived. His communicator chirped again, McCoy's voice, strained and urgent. "Jim, we've got a bigger problem down here. This isn't a natural virus. Someone engineered this plague. And I just found traces of Romulan biotechnology in the pathogen structure. Jim, this whole colony is a Romulan weapon test. They're using these people as guinea pigs." Kirk's relief evaporated, replaced by cold fury. The attack, the plague, the timing, it had all been orchestrated. The Romulans hadn't just tried to eliminate Kal-El and Kara. They'd created a humanitarian crisis as bait, murdered thousands of colonists as part of an elaborate trap. "Secure your findings, Bones. We're not leaving until we've saved every person we can." "Understood." McCoy out. Kirk stood, addressing his bridge crew. "Maintain yellow alert. Mr. Sulu, position us for maximum transporter efficiency to the surface. We're staying here until Dr. McCoy develops a treatment and we've evacuated anyone who needs advanced medical care. And someone get me Starfleet Command. The Romulans just committed an act of biological warfare against Federation citizens. They're going to answer for it." Through the view screen, Epsilon Canaris 3 turned slowly, blue and green and dying. Somewhere in the planet's cities, people suffered and died from a weapon designed to kill them. Somewhere in Romulan space, commanders congratulated themselves on a clever trap, one that had failed to kill its intended targets but succeeded in murdering innocents. Kirk's jaw set with determination. The Romulans wanted to know what Kal-El and Kara were capable of. They just had a demonstration. And if they thought that was impressive, they hadn't seen anything yet. The Enterprise settled into orbit, shields raised, weapons ready. Below, McCoy and Spock worked frantically to save lives. Above, two beings who'd lost their own world fought to save another. And in the darkness between stars, the Romulans retreated to plan their next move. The Enterprise's sickbay had transformed into a war zone against an invisible enemy. Every biobed was occupied, every medical officer working at maximum capacity. The air smelled of antiseptics and fear, the constant beep of monitoring equipment creating a symphony of desperation. Kirk stood in the doorway, watching his chief medical officer move between patients with controlled urgency. McCoy's uniform was stained with sweat and biological residue despite the biohazard protocols. He worked on a young woman, couldn't be more than 25, whose skin had taken on the grayish pallor Kirk had learned to associate with Canaris fever's final stages. Her breathing came in shallow gasps, lungs failing as the virus consumed her from within. "Bones," Kirk said quietly. McCoy didn't look up, his hand steadying a hypospray against the woman's neck. "Not now, Jim. I'm trying to stabilize her respiratory system before it completely collapses." Kirk waited, watching as the hypospray hissed and McCoy's tricorder hummed with data. The woman's breathing eased slightly, color returning to her cheeks by microscopic degrees. McCoy nodded to Nurse Chapel, who took over monitoring, then finally turned to Kirk. The doctor's face was haggard, lines of exhaustion carved deep around his eyes. 37 patients aboard. 23 critical, 14 stable but deteriorating. Down on the colony, the death toll hit 400 an hour ago and it's climbing. "We're losing this fight, Jim. What about the cure? You said you identified Romulan biotechnology in the pathogen." McCoy gestured toward his office, and Kirk followed him into the small space. The doctor collapsed into his chair, pulling up holographic displays of viral structures that meant nothing to Kirk's non-medical training. But he could see the alien geometry, the unnatural symmetry that spoke of design rather than evolution. "It's brilliant and monstrous," McCoy began, his voice carrying equal parts admiration and revulsion. The Romulans engineered a virus that targets humanoid respiratory and circulatory systems specifically. It's based on a naturally occurring pathogen from some planet in Romulan space, but they modified it, enhanced its transmission rate, increased its virulence, made it specifically lethal to species with similar biochemistry to humans, Vulcans, and about 40 other Federation member species. A weapon. The perfect weapon. Deploy it on a colony, watch it spread, study the results. No starships, no disruptors, no evidence of military action. Just a plague that could be blamed on natural causes or poor colonial planning. By the time anyone realizes it's engineered, thousands are dead. Kirk felt his anger crystallizing into cold determination. Can you cure it? I'm working on a broad-spectrum antiviral, but Jim, this thing mutates. Every generation, it shifts its protein structure just enough to stay ahead of antibodies. I neutralize one strain, and 3 hours later there's a new variant. It's like trying to fight smoke. McCoy's fist hit the desk. I need more time, better data, and about 12 medical miracles. What do you need? I need the original sample. The base pathogen before the Romulans modified it. If I can identify what they changed, I can develop a targeted treatment that works on the underlying mechanism instead of chasing mutations. But that sample is probably sitting in a Romulan bioweapons facility light years from here. Kirk's mind raced through options, discarding the impossible and weighing the merely insane. What if we could get you Romulan medical data? Their research files, experimental logs, anything related to this pathogen? McCoy looked up sharply. Where would we get that? The Romulans aren't going to volunteer their bioweapon specifications. No, but they left something behind. Kirk activated his communicator. Bridge, this is the captain. Mr. Chekhov, status on those damaged Romulan vessels. The young ensign's voice crackled back. 2 of them are still within sensor range, Captain. They're limping toward the neutral zone at low warp. One appears to have lost primary power, it's drifting on auxiliary only. Can you lock onto their computer cores? Transporters or tractor beam? The drifting ship is within transporter range, but Captain, beaming aboard enemy computer systems during an engagement could be considered an act of war. We're already past that line, Mr. Chekhov. They deployed a bioweapon against Federation civilians. I want their data, and I want it now. Bridge out. Kirk turned back to McCoy. If we can get you access to Romulan files, I'll find what I need. Just get me the data, Jim. Fast. We've got maybe 18 hours before the colony hits critical mass. After that, even if we develop a cure, there won't be enough people left to save. Kirk left sickbay and headed for the bridge, his stride purposeful. As the turbolift ascended, he mentally prepared for what he was about to order. Stealing Romulan military technology was a serious escalation, one that would require extensive justification to Starfleet command. But he'd court-martialed himself before for less worthy causes than saving 4,000 lives. The bridge was tense but controlled when he emerged. Sulu had the con, maintaining orbit while Scotty's engineering teams worked on the warp drive diagnostics. Uhura monitored communications, and Chekhov tracked the retreating Romulan vessels. Status of the disabled ship? Kirk demanded. Still drifting, Captain. Reading minimal life support and no weapons capability. The damage MS. Kara inflicted was extensive, she compromised their primary power coupling when she went through their engineering section. Kirk allowed himself a grim smile. Kara had literally torn through a starship's most critical systems. The Romulans had learned a very expensive lesson about underestimating the Kryptonians. Can we beam their computer core aboard? Spock's voice came from behind him, the Vulcan had returned from the surface. Captain, I would advise against that course of action. Romulan computer systems contain sophisticated self-destruct protocols. Attempting to transport the core would likely trigger those protocols, destroying the data we seek. Then what do you suggest? I suggest we send someone who can survive in vacuum and retrieve the core manually before the Romulans can scuttle their vessel. The computer core is typically located in the central processing nexus, approximately 40 meters aft of the bridge in Romulan Bird of Prey class ships. Kirk understood immediately. Kal-El and Kara. They are uniquely suited for this operation. They can approach the vessel without requiring shuttlecraft or spacesuits. They can enter through the hull breaches they created. And they can extract the computer core before the Romulans activate self-destruct. It's still a significant risk, Kirk said. We don't know if there are Romulan soldiers aboard with weapons that could hurt them. An acceptable risk given the alternative, Spock replied. 4,000 colonists versus 2 individuals with extraordinary defensive capabilities. The mathematics are clear. Kirk nodded slowly. Spock was right, but that didn't make the order easier. He activated the ship-wide intercom. Kal-El and Kara Zor-El, report to the bridge immediately. 3 minutes later, the 2 Kryptonians arrived. They'd cleaned up since the battle, their distinctive suits somehow pristine despite having torn through starship hulls. They moved with the easy confidence of beings who knew their own capabilities. Captain. Kal-El prompted. Kirk gestured to the view screen, which now showed the drifting Romulan vessel. Atmosphere still vented from multiple breaches, and the ship listed at an awkward angle, its artificial gravity clearly failing. That ship contains data we need, information about the bioweapon killing the colonists. Dr. McCoy believes if we can access Romulan research files, he can develop a cure. But we can't transport their computer systems without triggering self-destruct. Kara studied the damaged ship. You want us to go in and get it manually? Yes. Mr. Spock can provide schematics based on known Romulan designs, but you'll be operating with incomplete information. There may be armed soldiers aboard, environmental hazards, booby traps. And if the Romulans realize what you're doing, they'll definitely try to destroy their ship rather than let us have the data. How much time do we have? Kal-El asked. The ship is 7 minutes from crossing the neutral zone. Once it's in Romulan space, we can't legally pursue. 7 minutes to board, locate the computer core, extract it, and return to the Enterprise. The 2 Kryptonians exchanged glances, that silent communication passing between them again. Then Kara grinned, the first genuinely excited expression Kirk had seen from her. 7 minutes. Captain, we could do this in 3 if you're in a hurry. I am in a hurry. 4,000 lives are counting on this. Then we're gone. Kal-El moved toward the turbolift. Mr. Spock, can you transmit those schematics to a portable display? Something we can reference while we work. I will prepare a data pad with relevant specifications. However, I should note that Romulan computer cores are quite heavy, approximately 400 kilograms of duranium-shielded processing equipment. Kara laughed. Mr. Spock, Kal and I can lift starships. 400 kilograms is a paperweight. As they left the bridge, Kirk found himself impressed and troubled in equal measure. These 2 faced danger with the casual confidence of beings who'd forgotten how to be afraid. That confidence could save the mission, or lead them into a trap they didn't see coming. Mr. Sulu, take us to within 50,000 kilometers of that Romulan vessel. Close enough for rapid extraction if things go wrong. Aye, Captain. The Enterprise adjusted course, moving toward its wounded prey. On the view screen, the damaged bird of prey grew larger, its distinctive raptor paint scheme marred by scoring and breaches. Kirk could see the glow of internal fires through some of the holes, the flicker of emergency lighting in others. His communicator chirped. Kal-El to Enterprise. We're ready to deploy. Opening cargo bay doors now. Acknowledged. You have 6 minutes before that ship crosses into the neutral zone. Make them count. Understood. We're launching. Through the viewscreen, Kirk saw the Enterprise's cargo bay doors open, and two figures emerged into the void. They moved without hesitation, accelerating toward the Romulan vessel with shocking speed. Within seconds, they'd crossed the 50,000-kilometer gap. Impressive velocity, Spock observed. I'm reading their approach at approximately 50,000 kilometers per second. That's a significant fraction of light speed. Can they survive impact at that velocity? Kirk asked. Unknown. However, given their demonstrated resilience to starship weapons, I suspect the impact will be more damaging to the Romulan vessel than to them. Kal-El reached the ship first, slowing to a relative stop near one of the larger hull breaches. Kirk watched through long-range sensors as the Kryptonian simply grabbed the jagged edge of the breach and pulled it wider, creating a humanoid-sized entrance. Then he disappeared inside. Kara took a different approach. She flew straight through the hull where it looked weakest, creating her own entrance with the simple expedient of not stopping. Metal shrieked silently in vacuum as she passed through. 5 minutes, Uhura announced. Kirk gripped his command chair. 5 minutes for them to navigate an unknown, damaged ship, locate the computer core, extract it, and escape before crossing into enemy territory. It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of desperate gamble that defined his career. His communicator crackled. Kal-El to Enterprise. We found the central processing nexus. There are Romulan crew members here. They're in environmental suits, trying to set charges to destroy the computer core. Can you stop them? Already done. They drew disruptor pistols. The weapons don't seem to affect us much, stings a bit, but nothing serious. We've secured the area. Kara's extracting the computer core now. It's heavier than Mr. Spock indicated, more like 800 kilograms. Still manageable? Kirk asked. Kara says it's fine. Hold on. Captain, the ship's commander just activated the self-destruct sequence. We've got maybe 90 seconds before this thing blows. Kirk surged to his feet. Get out of there. Forget the computer core. Negative, Captain. We came for this data, and these people died for it. We're not leaving empty-handed. Kara, go. I'm right behind you. Captain, Chekhov's voice was urgent, the Romulan vessel's power core is building to overload. Yield estimated at 40 megatons. If they're still inside when it blows. They won't be, Kirk said, hoping he was right. Mr. Sulu, shields to maximum. Prepare to back us off. Through the sensors, Kirk saw a figure emerge from the Romulan ship, Kara, carrying something bulky and angular. The computer core. She accelerated toward the Enterprise, but even at her incredible speed, she was only halfway back when the countdown hit 0. The Romulan bird of prey exploded. Not a normal explosion, a matter-antimatter annihilation that turned the entire ship into a miniature star. The blast wave expanded at near-light speed, a sphere of destruction that would vaporize anything in its path. Including Kal-El, who Kirk now saw emerging from the ship's bridge section, something held in his arms. Shields, now! Kirk shouted. The blast wave hit the Enterprise like a hammer. The ship bucked, every structural member screaming as the deflector shields absorbed energy equivalent to a dozen photon torpedoes. The lights failed, plunging the bridge into emergency red. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Shields down to 30%. Sulu called out. Casualties on decks 7 and 8. Uhura reported. Kirk ignored it all, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The explosion's glare was fading, revealing empty space where the Romulan ship had been. Empty space with 3 figures floating in it. Kal-El, Kara, and impossibly, a Romulan in an environmental suit. Kal-El held the Romulan with one arm, protecting them from the blast with his own body. Kara still clutched the computer core. Kirk's communicator chirped weakly, damaged by the blast's electromagnetic pulse. Kal-El, to Enterprise. We're, okay. Got the core. Also rescued their ship's science officer. Figured, she might have information McCoy can use. Permission, to come aboard. Kirk found himself laughing, a release of tension and relief and sheer disbelief at what he just witnessed. Permission granted. And Mr. Kent? Don't ever scare me like that again. No promises, Captain. This universe is, proving interesting. As the three figures flew back toward the Enterprise, Kirk sank into his command chair. His ship was damaged. His crew was injured. And he'd just stolen classified Romulan technology while rescuing an enemy combatant. Starfleet Command was going to have a field day with this. But 4,000 colonists would live. And that, ultimately, was all that mattered. The Romulan science officer sat in the Enterprise's interrogation room, her angular features composed despite the circumstances. She'd removed her environmental suit helmet, revealing the distinctive pointed ears and severe bone structure of her species. Her uniform was pristine military gray with the insignia of the Romulan Star Empire's scientific division, a detail Kirk found grimly appropriate. Kirk stood across the table from her, Spock at his side. Through the observation window, he could see two security guards stationed outside. Inside, the room was sterile and cold, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. I am Captain James T. Kirk of the Federation Starship Enterprise. You're being held under Federation law as a prisoner of war following hostile action against a Federation colony. You have the right to remain silent, and anything you say. I know Federation protocols, Captain. Her voice carried the characteristic Romulan accent, clipped and precise. I studied your culture extensively. I am Subcommander Tsaren, Xenobiological Warfare Specialist, Romulan Second Fleet. And before you ask, I will tell you nothing about Imperial military operations. I'm not interested in your military operations, Kirk said, pulling out a chair and sitting. I want to know about Canaris fever. Something flickered in Tsaren's eyes, guilt, perhaps, or calculation. A tragic natural outbreak. My condolences to the colonists. Don't insult my intelligence. Dr. McCoy found Romulan biotechnology markers in the pathogen structure. Your ship was monitoring the colony. And you just happened to be in the area when we needed to steal your computer core, a core that your commander tried very hard to destroy. Natural outbreak. Try again. Tsaren was silent for a moment, her dark eyes studying Kirk with analytical intensity. You rescued me. You're flying demon. The male one, he shielded me from the explosion with his own body. Why? Because that's what we do, Kirk replied simply. We save lives, even enemy lives when possible. Now, 4,000 people are dying on that colony. If you have information that could help us develop a cure, I'm asking you to share it. Not as a Starfleet captain to a Romulan officer, but as one person to another. Please. You ask me to betray my empire. I'm asking you to save innocent lives. There's a difference. Tsaren's gaze shifted to Spock. You're Vulcan. Your people and mine share ancestry. Surely you understand, the Empire's survival requires advantages over the Federation. Bioweapons provide asymmetric capabilities that. Vulcans rejected such weapons millennia ago, Spock interrupted, his tone carefully neutral. We learned that some victories are purchased at too high a moral cost. Logic dictates that weapons which cannot be controlled ultimately destroy their creators as surely as their enemies. Your pathogen could mutate, Sub-Commander. It could cross back into Romulan space. It could kill your own people. The containment protocols are imperfect, Spock finished. All biological systems are subject to mutation and adaptation. You created a weapon that learns, that evolves. You cannot control evolution, Sub-Commander. No one can. Saren's composure cracked slightly. Kirk saw the fear beneath, a scientist who understood exactly what she'd helped create and what it meant. The base pathogen, she said quietly, was harvested from a planet in the Gamma Hydri system. A virus that affected the local fauna, primarily avian species. We modified it, enhanced its transmission vectors, altered its protein structures to target humanoid biochemistry. The research took 4 years. 73 test subjects died in the development phase, prisoners, mostly, from the Reman mines. Kirk felt his jaw tighten. 73 people murdered in the name of weapons development. Where are the research files? The base pathogen samples? What do we need to develop a cure? The computer core you stole contains everything: genetic sequences, mutation maps, antiviral protocols. But Captain, understanding the science won't be enough. This pathogen was designed to be incurable. Every treatment triggers adaptive responses. We built it to defeat medical intervention. Then how were you going to control it after deployment? Kirk demanded. Saren's silence was answer enough. Spock's eyebrow rose. There is no control mechanism. You created a doomsday weapon with no off switch. Fascinating. And monumentally illogical. The Empire believed the weapon would burn itself out after eliminating target populations. High mortality rate, rapid spread, then collapse as it ran out of hosts. We didn't anticipate, she stopped herself, military discipline reasserting itself. Didn't anticipate what? Kirk pressed. That it would mutate so quickly. In our controlled tests, mutation rates were predictable. On an actual colony, with thousands of hosts and environmental variables, the virus is evolving faster than our models projected. Captain, if you don't contain this outbreak, if even one infected person leaves that planet, she met his gaze. This could spread across the Federation. Billions dead within months. The weight of those words settled over the room like a shroud. Kirk had known the situation was serious, but hearing it confirmed by the weapon's own creator drove the reality home with brutal clarity. Mr. Spock, take Subcommander Saren to sickbay. She's going to work with Dr. McCoy to develop a cure. Under guard, but with full access to medical resources. Captain, Saren protested, I am a prisoner. You cannot compel me to work against Imperial interests. Kirk leaned forward, his voice hard. Subcommander, you helped create a weapon that's killing children. Right now, there's a 6-year-old girl in my sickbay fighting for every breath because of what you made. You get to choose, be a prisoner who stands by while thousands die, or be a scientist who helps fix what she broke. Your empire isn't watching anymore. There's no court-martial waiting, no dishonor, no consequences except what you see in the mirror. What's it going to be? Saren's military bearing crumbled. Kirk saw the woman beneath the uniform, someone who told herself she was serving her empire, advancing scientific knowledge, protecting her people. Someone who'd never had to face the reality of her work until now. I'll help, she said quietly. Not for the Federation. For the colonists. Because you're right, someone should fix what I helped break. Kirk nodded to Spock, who escorted Saren from the interrogation room. As the door closed, Kirk allowed himself a moment of exhaustion. 20 hours since they'd arrived at Epsilon Canaris 3. 500 dead and counting. And now they were racing against a pathogen designed to be unstoppable. His communicator chirped. Engineering to Captain Kirk. Kirk here, Scotty. What's the status on the warp drive? She's purring like a kitten now, Captain. Turned out to be a faulty coupling in the port nacelle. Must have happened during the Romulan attack. We're back to full power, ready to run like the devil if needed. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Kirk out. He headed for sickbay, needing to see the progress for himself. The corridors of the Enterprise thrummed with activity, damage control teams repairing battle damage, crew members hurrying to stations, the organized chaos of a starship under crisis conditions. Sickbay had somehow grown more crowded. More colonists had been transported aboard as the situation planetside deteriorated. The Enterprise's medical facilities were designed for a crew of 400, not a colonial population of thousands. McCoy had set up triage in the cargo bays, converted crew quarters into isolation wards, and was running on stimulants and stubbornness. Kirk found his friend in the main surgical bay, working alongside Saren and Spock. The Romulan scientist had a medical tricorder in hand, analyzing data streams from the stolen computer core. McCoy operated on a colonist, a middle-aged man whose chest rose and fell with mechanical regularity as life support equipment did the breathing his failing lungs could no longer manage. "Talk to me, Bones," Kirk said. McCoy didn't look up from his work. "The Romulan core is a treasure trove, Jim. Complete genetic maps, mutation pathways, viral protein structures, everything we need to understand how this thing works. Saren here has been invaluable. She knows this pathogen inside and out. Can you cure it? We're close. The virus has a weakness, an exploit the Romulans built in during development in case they needed a kill switch. It's buried deep in the genetic code, a failsafe they never activated. If we can trigger it, the virus will cannibalize itself. But there's always a but, Kirk muttered. But we need to manufacture the triggering agent in sufficient quantities to treat 4,000 people, and we need to do it in the next 6 hours before the colony's medical infrastructure completely collapses. Jim, I need industrial-scale pharmaceutical production. The Enterprise's medical replicators aren't built for this volume. Kirk's mind raced. The colony must have manufacturing facilities. Pharmaceutical production, medical supply distribution. They do, Saren said, surprising Kirk with her interjection. The Romulan surveillance of the colony was extensive. There's a medical complex in the capital city with production capability. If you can secure it and provide power, I can program the manufacturing systems to produce the antiviral agent. McCoy glanced at the Romulan, then at Kirk. She's telling the truth. I've verified the science. This could work. Mr. Spock, coordinate with the colonial government. I want that medical facility secured and operational. Mr. Scott can beam down portable generators if needed. Saren, you'll go with them under guard. You program the systems, they produce the cure, and we save those people. Understood, Captain, Spock replied. Kirk looked at the man on the surgical table, unconscious, dying, unaware that his salvation was being calculated in computer cores and replicated molecules. How long until you can start production? 4 hours to set up and program the systems, Saren estimated. 2 hours for initial production run. Then distribution and administration, that's your logistics problem, Captain, not mine. I'll handle the logistics. You just make sure that antiviral works. As the medical team prepared for the surface deployment, Kirk's communicator chirped again. This time it was Uhura. Captain, I'm receiving a priority transmission from Starfleet Command. Admiral Nogura wants to speak with you immediately. He's not happy, sir. Kirk sighed. The stolen Romulan technology, the attack on Imperial vessels, the rescue of an enemy combatant, Command had undoubtedly received preliminary reports. Time to face the music. Put him through to my ready room. I'm on my way. He left sickbay, taking the turbolift to the bridge. The ready room was his sanctuary. A small office adjacent to the bridge, decorated with star charts and commendations, the private space where he could work without the constant attention of the bridge crew. The view screen on his desk activated, revealing Admiral Nogura's stern features. The Admiral was old-school Starfleet, a career officer who'd risen through the ranks during the Klingon conflicts. He believed in regulations, protocol, and chain of command. Captain Kirk, Nogura said without preamble, explain to me why my morning briefing included reports of you attacking Romulan vessels, stealing classified technology, and harboring an enemy combatant. And do it quickly, because right now the Romulan ambassador is demanding your head on a diplomatic platter. Kirk kept his expression neutral. Admiral, the Romulans deployed a biological weapon against a Federation colony. 4,000 civilians are dying because the Romulan Empire decided to test their latest weapon on innocent people. The vessels we engaged were part of that operation. The technology we acquired contains the research needed to cure the pathogen. And the enemy combatant is a scientist who's currently helping Dr. McCoy save those 4,000 lives. Nogura's expression didn't soften. That's your justification for an act of war. With respect, Admiral, the Romulans committed the act of war. We just responded. And if defending Federation citizens from biological warfare is grounds for court-martial, then I'll face it. But not until those colonists are cured and that planet is secured. Captain, you don't get to make tactical decisions that affect Federation-Romulan relations. You follow orders, maintain protocols, and escalate through proper channels. Admiral, by the time I escalated through proper channels, 4,000 people would be dead. I made a command decision based on the information available and the capabilities at hand. If that's wrong, then I'll accept the consequences. But I won't apologize for saving lives. Nogura was silent for a long moment. Kirk had served under him long enough to know the Admiral was weighing politics against principles, regulations against results. How soon until the colony is stabilized? Dr. McCoy estimates 6 hours for full antiviral production and distribution. After that, we'll need another 48 hours for patient recovery and verification that the pathogen is contained. And the Romulan scientist? She's cooperating fully. She helped develop the weapon, and she's helping us neutralize it. I recommend clemency in exchange for her testimony about Romulan bioweapons programs. Nogura nodded slowly. Very well, Captain. You have 48 hours to clean up this mess. After that, the Enterprise returns to Starbase 11 where you'll brief command on everything that happened. And Captain? You'd better hope those 4,000 people survive, because if they don't, this entire incident becomes a lot harder to justify. The transmission ended. Kirk sat back in his chair, exhaustion finally catching up with him. 22 hours awake. Multiple battles. A plague to cure. And now political consequences to navigate. His door chimed. Come. Kal-El entered, his blue uniform somehow still pristine. The Kryptonian moved with casual grace, settling into the chair across from Kirk's desk. Captain, I wanted to check in. Kara and I have been helping with colony evacuations, transporting critical patients to the Enterprise faster than your transporters can manage. Dr. McCoy says we've saved about 50 lives that would have died in transit. But we wanted to know. Is there anything else we can do? Kirk studied the being across from him. 24 hours ago, Kal-El had been a refugee from another universe, uncertain and displaced. Now he was asking how he could help save strangers, using powers that defied physics to transport dying patients through space. Mr. Kent, you and your cousin have already done more than anyone could reasonably ask. You fought off 5 Romulan warships. You stole critical intelligence from an exploding vessel. You're saving lives with every trip to the surface. You've earned the right to rest. With respect, Captain, we don't need rest. Our cells recharge with solar radiation faster than we can deplete them. We came to this universe by accident, but we're here now. We can make a difference. So I'm asking, what else needs to be done? Kirk smiled despite his exhaustion. Mr. Scott needs help installing power generators at the medical facility on the surface. They're heavy, bulky, and we're short on cargo transporters. Think you and Kara could handle manual delivery? Consider it done. Anything else? Get some rest anyway. That's an order. Because in 6 hours, we're going to start distributing the antiviral, and I need you both fresh and ready in case the Romulans decide to make another attempt on this colony. Kal-El stood, nodding. Understood, Captain. And sir. Thank you. For trusting us. For giving us a chance to be more than just powerful. For letting us help. Thank you for being the kind of people worth trusting, Mr. Kent. As the Kryptonian left, Kirk allowed himself a moment of hope. The cure was coming. The colony would survive. And maybe, just maybe, he'd found 2 allies who could help the Federation face the challenges ahead. Outside his ready room, the stars wheeled past. The universe continued its eternal dance, indifferent to the struggles of its inhabitants. But aboard the Enterprise, people. Human, Vulcan, Romulan, and Kryptonian, worked together to save lives. And that, Kirk thought, was what made it all worthwhile. The medical facility in Epsilon Canaris III's capital city had been transformed into a production center for miracles. Portable generators hummed with power, their antimatter cores providing the energy needed to run pharmaceutical synthesizers at maximum capacity. Saren worked at the main control console, her fingers dancing across Romulan and Federation interfaces with equal facility, programming the production sequence that would save thousands. Kirk stood in the facility's observation deck, watching through transparent aluminum as the first batch of antiviral agent materialized in containment vessels. Beside him, McCoy held a tricorder, verifying the molecular structure against the specifications Saren had provided. "It's perfect," McCoy breathed. "Jim, this is it. This is the cure." Below, Spock coordinated with colonial medical staff, organizing distribution networks and treatment protocols. Kal-El and Kara moved among the sick in the temporary wards, their presence somehow comforting despite their otherworldly nature. Kirk had watched a dying child reach up to touch Kara's cape, and seen the Kryptonian woman kneel beside the bed with infinite gentleness, whispering reassurances until the medical team arrived. "How long until we can begin mass distribution?" Kirk asked. "The synthesizers are producing at maximum rate, 10,000 doses per hour. We need approximately 4,000 doses immediately for critical cases, then another 8,000 for infected but stable patients. Call it 2 hours of production, then 3 hours of administration. By this time tomorrow, Captain, this colony will be recovering instead of dying." Kirk felt the tension he'd been carrying for 24 hours begin to ease. They were going to make it. Despite Romulan schemes and biological weapons, despite impossible odds and political complications, they were going to save these people. Then the alarms began. Red lights flooded the facility as proximity sensors screamed warnings. Kirk's communicator shrieked before he could activate it. "Enterprise to Captain Kirk." Sulu's voice was tight with urgency. 3 Romulan warbuds just decloaked in orbit, heavy cruisers, not birds of prey. They're charging weapons and hailing us. "Captain, their lead commander is demanding we surrender the stolen computer core and Saren immediately or they'll destroy the colony from orbit." Kirk's blood ran cold. Heavy cruisers. The Romulans had escalated, sending their most powerful warships. How long until weapons range? "They're already in range, sir. They have firing solutions on both the Enterprise and the medical facility. I'm reading multiple plasma torpedo locks. If they fire." "I know what happens if they fire, Mr. Sulu. Shields to maximum, but do not return fire." "Not yet." Kirk turned to McCoy. "Bones, how mobile are the critical patients?" "Jim, most of them can't be moved. They're on life support, ventilators, artificial organs. Then we defend them here. Get Saren to a secure location. She's what they really want." Kirk rushed from the observation deck, taking stairs 3 at a time as he headed for the facility's communications center. His mind raced through tactical scenarios. The Enterprise could handle 1, maybe 2 heavy cruisers. 3 was a losing battle, especially with the ship trying to protect a planetary facility from orbital bombardment. He burst into the communications center where Uhura had established a relay station. "Lieutenant, open a channel to the Romulan flagship. Audio and visual." "Channel open, Captain." The view screen activated, showing a Romulan bridge vastly different from the bird of prey Kirk had seen before. This was a command vessel, larger and more sophisticated. The commander who appeared was female, her features bearing the distinctive ridged forehead of high-ranking Romulan nobility. Her uniform was immaculate, decorated with medals and honors. "I am Commander Karas of the Imperial Warbird Valdor," she said, her voice carrying absolute authority. "You are Captain Kirk of the Enterprise. We meet under unfortunate circumstances. Commander, this colony is under Federation protection. Any attack against it will be considered an act of war." "An act of war?" How amusing, coming from the captain who attacked 5 Imperial vessels, stole classified military technology, and kidnapped a Romulan officer. "You speak of war as if it isn't already upon us." Karas leaned forward in her command chair. "But I am not here for war, Captain Kirk. I am here to retrieve what belongs to the Empire. Return Subcommander Tsarin and the computer core you stole, and we will withdraw. Refuse, and I will reduce that medical facility, and everyone in it, to radioactive ash." "You'd murder 4,000 colonists to recover 1 scientist and some data?" "I would eliminate a security breach and send a message to the Federation about the consequences of theft. The colonists are unfortunate collateral, but their blood will be on your hands, not mine. You brought this situation into existence when you violated Imperial territory and stole from us." Kirk's jaw tightened. "We didn't violate anything. Your vessel was drifting in Federation space after attacking us. Salvage laws are clear. Do not insult my intelligence with legal technicalities. You know what you have, and you know its value. Return it, or I begin orbital bombardment in 5 minutes. Choose quickly, Captain." The transmission ended. Kirk stood in the communications center, mind racing through options that all led to death. The Enterprise couldn't win against 3 heavy cruisers. They couldn't evacuate 4,000 patients in 5 minutes. They couldn't hide the facility from orbital targeting. They were trapped. "Captain," Uhura said quietly, "what do we do?" Kirk activated his communicator. "Kirk to Kal-El and Kara. I need you both in the communications center. Now." They arrived in seconds, moving faster than human eyes could track. Both Kryptonians studied Kirk's expression and understood immediately that something was catastrophically wrong. 3 Romulan heavy cruisers in orbit, Kirk explained rapidly. They want Tsarin and the stolen computer core. If we refuse, they bombard the facility. We have 4 minutes. Can the Enterprise fight them? Kal-El asked. No. 3 heavy cruisers would destroy us in a sustained engagement. And even if we won, the facility would be a radioactive crater. We can't evacuate, we can't fight, and we can't surrender. Giving the Romulans their bioweapon research would let them continue developing weapons to murder civilians. Kara moved to the window, staring up at the sky where 3 Romulan warships hung invisible beyond the clouds. What if we disable their weapons? Take out their plasma torpedo systems before they can fire? That would require penetrating their shields, accessing their weapons control systems, and disabling them faster than they could respond. Against 1 ship, maybe. Against 3 simultaneously? Kirk shook his head. It's impossible. Captain, Kal-El said carefully, we're standing in front of you after flying through the vacuum of space, tearing through starship hulls, and surviving matter-antimatter explosions. Impossible might not mean what it used to. Kirk looked at them both, these beings from another universe who'd already done the impossible multiple times. An insane plan began forming in his mind. Could you reach those ships before they fire? Actually board them in orbit? Yes, Kara said immediately. We can fly faster than we've been showing you. Much faster. We've been holding back because we didn't want to damage your ship's hull with our velocity. In open space, we can reach orbital altitude in under 3 seconds. And once you're aboard, could you disable their weapon systems? We'd need to know where the weapons are, Kal-El said. Ship schematics, targeting systems, control architecture. Spock's voice came from the doorway. The Vulcan had entered silently, tricorder in hand. I have been analyzing the computer core we acquired. It contains detailed specifications for Romulan heavy cruiser-class vessels, including weapons system layouts. I can provide tactical overlays. Kirk felt hope surge. How precise? Sufficient to identify primary plasma torpedo controls, power distribution nodes, and shield generators. However, Captain, even with this information, asking Kal-El and Kara to simultaneously disable 3 warships is asking them to act as weapons of war. This goes beyond self-defense or rescue operations. I know what I'm asking. Kirk turned to face the 2 Kryptonians. I'm asking you to prevent a massacre. The Romulans will kill 4,000 people if we don't stop them. But I'm also asking you to attack 3 military vessels, potentially killing Romulan crew members in the process. This isn't about protecting yourselves. This is about choosing to act as tactical assets in a military operation. You told me you weren't weapons. I'm asking you to be weapons anyway. And I have no right to ask that. The silence stretched. Through the window, Kirk could see medics administering the antiviral agent to patients, unaware that their salvation hung in balance. Somewhere above, 3 warships counted down to bombardment. Kal-El and Kara looked at each other, that silent communication passing between them. Then Kal-El turned to Kirk, his blue eyes clear and resolute. In our universe, we had a code. A line we wouldn't cross. We didn't kill, we didn't take lives if there was any other option. We tried to save everyone, even the people trying to kill us. He paused. But we also understood that sometimes, saving innocent lives means stopping those who would take them. We fought in wars, Captain. We made hard choices. We accepted that our power came with responsibility, not just to save, but to prevent atrocities when we were the only ones who could. We're not weapons, Kara added, but we can be soldiers when soldiers are needed. Those 4,000 people didn't ask for this fight. They didn't create bioweapons or deploy plague ships. They're just colonists trying to live their lives. If we can save them, we will. Whatever it costs. Kirk nodded slowly. Then here's the plan. Mr. Spock provides you with tactical overlays of Romulan weapons systems. You board all 3 ships simultaneously. Kal-El takes the flagship, Kara takes the port cruiser, and Kal-El, after disabling the flagship, you move to the starboard cruiser. Primary targets are plasma torpedo controls and shield generators. Secondary targets are propulsion systems. You disable, not destroy. Give the crews a chance to evacuate if possible. Questions? Just one, Kal-El said. After we disable their weapons, what stops them from repairing and attacking again? The Enterprise. Once their shields are down and weapons offline, we'll use tractor beams to tow them out of the system. By the time they repair, we'll have evacuated the colony and disappeared into Federation space. Risky, Kara observed. If we miss even one weapons system, then the Enterprise shields will have to hold. But I have faith in both your abilities and my chief engineer's shield maintenance. Kirk checked the chronometer. 2 minutes until their deadline. Mr. Spock, transfer those tactical overlays to portable displays. Kal-El, Kara, you have 90 seconds to study Romulan ship architecture and figure out how to tear it apart without killing everyone aboard. They moved with purpose, gathering around Spock's tricorder as the Vulcan displayed 3-dimensional holographic schematics of Romulan heavy cruiser internals. Kirk watched them memorize details with inhuman speed, their enhanced minds processing information that would take normal humans hours to absorb. The plasma torpedo controls are here, Spock indicated a section deep within each ship's hull. Destroying this coupling will disable the primary weapons. Shield generators are distributed across 3 nodes, you'll need to disable all 3 to drop shields completely. Impulse drive controls are. We see them, Kara interrupted. Sorry, Mr. Spock, but we're out of time. Captain, we're ready. Kirk activated his communicator. Kirk to Enterprise. Mr. Sulu, in approximately 30 seconds, 2 individuals are going to fly into orbit and attack the Romulan vessels. When you see their shields drop, hit those ships with tractor beams and drag them out of the system. Maximum power, maximum speed. If they start to break free, use phasers on their engines, disable only, no kill shots. Acknowledged, Captain. Sir, did you say 2 individuals are going to attack 3 heavy cruisers? You'll understand when you see it. Trust me. Kirk out. He turned to Kal-El and Kara. They stood at the window, both looking up at the sky, preparing for what came next. Kirk saw the transformation come over them, the casual friendliness replaced by warrior focus, the uncertain refugees becoming something harder and more dangerous. One more thing, Kirk said. No matter what happens up there, you both come back. That's an order. We don't trade your lives for theirs. Kara smiled. Captain, we've survived worse than Romulan warships. We'll be fine. The Romulans won't, Kal-El added. They're about to learn why you don't threaten innocents when Kryptonians are around. Ready, Kara? Always. They moved to the facility's emergency exit, a large cargo door designed for equipment transport. Kal-El grabbed the manual release and pulled. Metal shrieked as he tore the door from its frame, creating an opening to the outside world. Then they flew. Kirk had seen them fly before, but this was different. This was Kal-El and Kara at full velocity, no longer holding back, no longer concerned with damaging their surroundings. They accelerated so fast that sonic booms shattered windows throughout the facility. They punched through the sound barrier, the light barrier, physical barriers that should have been impossible. Within 3 seconds, they'd vanished from sight, climbing toward orbit at velocities that turned them into projectiles of flesh and determination. Kirk ran back to the communications center, activating the view screen to show orbital view from the Enterprise's sensors. The 3 Romulan heavy cruisers hung in perfect formation, weapons ports glowing with charged plasma torpedoes, ready to rain death on the colony below. Then Kara hit the port cruiser. She impacted their forward shields at a significant fraction of light speed. The shields held for perhaps a microsecond before the kinetic energy overwhelmed them. Kara passed through the shield barrier, through the outer hull, through internal bulkheads, punching a tunnel straight toward the weapons control center. Kal-El was even more precise. He circled the flagship at impossible velocity, eyes glowing red as heat vision lanced out at specific points. Shield generators exploded under focused thermal assault. Then he was inside, moving through the ship like a guided missile, destroying weapons controls with surgical precision. The starboard cruiser's commander realized what was happening and tried to maneuver, tried to target the Enterprise, tried to do anything to salvage the situation. Too late. Kal-El finished with the flagship and moved to the starboard cruiser in less than 5 seconds. More shields failed. More weapons went offline. Enterprise to Captain Kirk. Sulu's voice was filled with awe. All 3 Romulan vessels are disabled. Shields down, weapons offline, propulsion systems critically damaged. I'm engaging tractor beams now. Sir, what are those 2? They're allies, Mr. Sulu. And they just saved 4,000 lives. Maintain tractor beam lock and get those ships out of weapons range of the colony. Kirk watched through the viewscreen as the Enterprise's tractor beams latched onto the crippled Romulan vessels, dragging them away from orbital bombardment range. The warship struggled, their auxiliary systems fighting against the Enterprise's pull, but damaged and powerless, they were helpless. Kal-El and Kara floated in space between the Enterprise and the Romulan ships, silent guardians ensuring no further attacks materialized. Kirk's communicator chirped. Commander Kara's voice came through, strained and furious. "Captain Kirk, you have committed an act of war. The Empire will not forget this. We will not forgive this. You and your demons will answer for this attack. Commander, you threatened to murder 4,000 civilians. We stopped you. If that's an act of war, then so be it. But those colonists are under Federation protection, and I will defend them against any threat. Your ships will be released at the neutral zone border. Any further aggression will be met with the same response. Kirk out." He closed the channel before Kara's could respond. Around him, the communications center erupted in cheers. Medical staff and colonists who'd been listening realized they were saved, that the bombardment wasn't coming, that they would live. McCoy appeared beside Kirk, medical tricorder still in hand. "Jim, what you just did, asking those two to attack 3 warships, that's going to have consequences. The Romulans won't let this stand." "I know, Bones. But 4,000 people are alive because of what Kal-El and Kara did. That's worth the consequences. I hope you're right. Because something tells me this is just the beginning." Kirk looked up at the sky where 2 figures floated, silhouetted against the stars. Refugees from another universe who'd become defenders of this one. Beings of godlike power who'd chosen to use that power to save rather than destroy. And he wondered what would come next, now that the galaxy knew what they were capable of. 72 hours after the Romulan attack, the Enterprise hung in standard orbit above Epsilon Canaris 3. Below, the colony was recovering, infection rates dropping, mortality rates approaching 0, the antiviral treatment working beyond even McCoy's optimistic projections. The medical facility had been converted back to its normal operations, and portable generators were being recalled to the Enterprise's cargo bays. Kirk stood in his quarters, staring at the formal report he'd just completed for Starfleet Command. 23 pages documenting everything: the Romulan bioweapon, the attack, the theft of classified technology, Saren's cooperation, and most significantly, the combat deployment of 2 extradimensional refugees with capabilities that exceeded anything in Federation records. The door chimed. "Come." Kal-El and Kara entered, no longer wearing their distinctive suits. Instead, they'd adopted standard Federation civilian attire, simple tunics and trousers that made them look almost normal. Almost. There was still something about them, an indefinable presence that marked them as different. "Captain," Kal-El began, "we wanted to talk to you before you submit that report to Starfleet Command." Kirk gestured to the chairs across from his desk. "Have a seat. I assume you've heard what I've written." "We can hear most things on this ship if we focus," Kara admitted. "The hull isn't exactly soundproof to us. We've been trying not to eavesdrop, but when our names come up in official reports." "Fair enough. What's your concern?" Kal-El leaned forward, his expression serious. "Captain, your report is honest. Maybe too honest. You document our capabilities in detail, our strength, speed, durability, sensory abilities. You provide tactical analysis of how we disabled 3 Romulan warships. You essentially create a field manual for how to deploy us as military assets. I document facts. That's my duty as a Starfleet officer." "We understand that," Kara said. "But we're concerned about what Starfleet Command will do with those facts. You've spent the last week treating us like people, like refugees who deserve protection and autonomy. What happens when some admiral reads your report and decides we're too valuable to waste on exploration missions? What happens when they want to weaponize us?" Kirk set down his stylus, considering their words carefully. They weren't wrong. The report he'd written was thorough, detailed, and absolutely devastating in its implications. Two beings who could single-handedly disable warships, survive in hard vacuum, move faster than sensors could track. Command would be insane not to see the military applications. What do you want me to do? Kirk asked. Lie in an official report. Omit critical details. That's not how Starfleet works. We're not asking you to lie, Kal-El said. We're asking you to emphasize certain aspects over others. Yes, we disabled 3 Romulan ships. But we also saved 4,000 colonists. We transported medical patients, delivered supplies, and worked alongside your crew as helpers rather than weapons. Your report could focus on our potential for humanitarian operations rather than combat effectiveness. That would be a deliberate misrepresentation of your capabilities. No, Kara countered, it would be an accurate representation of how we choose to use our capabilities. Captain, we've been through this before in our universe. Well-meaning people documented what we could do, created databases and contingency plans, and eventually those plans fell into the wrong hands. We're not asking you to compromise your integrity. We're asking you to be strategic about what you emphasize. Kirk stood, moving to the viewport where Epsilon Canaris 3 turned slowly below. The planet looked peaceful now, the crisis passed, but he could still remember the desperation in the colonial governor's voice, the red zone spreading across population maps, the children dying in sickbay. Let me tell you what's going to happen when I submit this report, Kirk said quietly. Starfleet Command will convene a special session. They'll debate your status, your rights, your future. Some admirals will argue you should be recruited into Starfleet, given ranks and assignments. Others will argue you should be classified and contained, studied and monitored. A few will argue you should be sent away entirely, too dangerous, too powerful, too unpredictable for Federation space. And what do you argue, Captain? Kal-El asked. Kirk turned to face them. I argue that you're people. People with extraordinary abilities, yes, but people with rights to self-determination, freedom, and dignity. I argue that the Federation was founded on principles of diversity and acceptance, and those principles mean nothing if we only apply them to beings who don't frighten us. I argue that you've proven yourselves to be exactly the kind of individuals the Federation needs, capable, principled, and willing to help without expectation of reward. Then include that in your report, Kara said. Not just what we can do, but who we are. Not just our capabilities, but our choices. Kirk nodded slowly. I'll revise the report. Emphasis on humanitarian applications, documented evidence of principled behavior, recommendation for continued civilian specialist status with the Enterprise. But I can't guarantee Command will listen. They have their own priorities, their own fears. We understand, Kal-El said. We just want a chance to be something other than weapons. We've had enough of that for one lifetime. The door chimed again. Spock entered without waiting for acknowledgement. A privilege earned through years of service. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Subcommander Tsaren. She wishes to speak with you before we transfer her to Federation custody. Kirk glanced at Kal-El and Kara. This shouldn't take long. Unless you'd like to be present for this conversation. We would, Kara said. She helped save the colony. We'd like to hear what she has to say. They made their way to the briefing room where Tsaren waited under guard. The Romulan scientist looked different than she had during interrogation, less rigid, more uncertain. The weight of her choices had settled on her shoulders visibly. Sub-Commander, Kirk greeted her. You asked to speak with me? Captain Kirk. And the Kryptonians. Tsaren studied Kal-El and Kara with scientific curiosity. I watched sensor recordings of your attack on the Imperial cruisers. Fascinating. In Romulan space, you would be studied, dissected, your genetic material harvested for replication. The Empire believes power should be exploited, not wasted on individual freedom. Then it's fortunate we're not in Romulan space, Kal-El replied coolly. Tsaren actually smiled, a bitter expression. Indeed. Captain, I wanted to inform you that I've decided to formally request asylum in the Federation. I know the penalty for my crimes. Participation in bioweapons development, testing on sentient subjects, deployment of banned weapons. I'm willing to face trial, to testify about Imperial programs, to help prevent other weapons like Canaris fever from being developed. But I cannot return to the Empire. They would execute me for my cooperation with you. Kirk hadn't expected that. Romulan defectors were rare, the Empire's loyalty conditioning was extensive and effective. That's a significant decision, Sub-Commander. You'd be abandoning your people, your career, everything you've known. I abandoned my principles when I helped create a plague designed to murder civilians, Saren said quietly. Working with Dr. McCoy these past days, seeing the faces of the people my weapon was killing. Captain, I was a scientist. I told myself I served the Empire's greater good, that military applications weren't my concern. But you don't get to separate science from consequences. You don't get to create death and claim you were just following orders. No, Kirk agreed. You don't. The Federation will grant me asylum. Even knowing what I've done. That's not my decision alone. But I'll recommend it. Your cooperation saved thousands of lives. Your testimony could prevent future bioweapon deployments. And frankly, Sub-Commander, the Federation believes in redemption. We believe people can change, can learn from mistakes, can become better than they were. If you're willing to do that work, to face accountability and earn your place here, then yes, I believe the Federation will give you that chance. Saren's eyes glistened. The first sign of emotion Kirk had seen from her beyond professional calculation. Thank you, Captain. After Saren was escorted back to her quarters, Kirk found himself alone with Spock in the briefing room. The Vulcan had been uncharacteristically quiet during the exchange. Something on your mind, Mr. Spock? I have been considering the philosophical implications of our recent experiences, Spock replied. The Kryptonians represent a category of being that challenges Federation assumptions about power and responsibility. They possess capabilities that exceed our most advanced technology, yet they choose to subordinate themselves to our laws and principles. It raises questions about the nature of authority and consent. Meaning that Kal-El and Kara could, theoretically, ignore Federation law entirely. They could establish themselves as rulers, conquerors, or gods. No force in this quadrant could stop them if they chose that path. Yet they voluntarily accept restrictions, follow orders from beings far less powerful than themselves, and defer to protocols they don't strictly need to observe. Why? Kirk smiled. Because power without accountability is tyranny, Spock. They understand that. They've seen what happens when beings with their capabilities answer only to themselves. So they choose differently, they choose community, cooperation, law. Not because they must, but because it's right. A fascinating ethical stance. And one that makes them more valuable than their physical capabilities alone would suggest. Exactly. Which is why my revised report will emphasize their character over their combat effectiveness. Command needs to understand we're not dealing with weapons or tools, we're dealing with people who happen to be extraordinarily capable. There's a difference. Spock raised an eyebrow. A distinction some admirals may fail to appreciate. Then they'll learn. Or I'll teach them. Forcefully if necessary. The Vulcan's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. I suspect you will, Captain. 6 days later, the Enterprise dropped out of warp at Starbase 11. The massive orbital facility hung in space like a city of lights, dozens of starships docked at its pylons, thousands of personnel moving through its corridors. Kirk had been here before, for court-martials, mission briefings, and endless bureaucratic debriefings. This time felt different. Admiral Nogura met them in the Starbase main conference room, accompanied by 3 other flag officers Kirk recognized, Admiral Comac, Admiral Fitzgerald, and Admiral Cartwright. The assembled command staff represented significant power within Starfleet's hierarchy. Kirk entered flanked by Spock and McCoy. Kal-El and Kara followed, looking uncomfortable in the formal setting. They had been offered Starfleet uniforms for the meeting but declined, choosing instead to wear civilian clothes that didn't carry the weight of rank and obligation. Captain Kirk, Nogura began without preamble. You've submitted a remarkable report. 3 Romulan warships disabled. A bioweapon neutralized. 4,000 colonists saved. And most remarkably, the introduction of 2 extradimensional refugees whose capabilities exceed anything in Federation records. I've read your analysis. Now I want to hear it directly. What exactly are we dealing with? Kirk had prepared for this question. Admirals, we're dealing with 2 individuals who lost their entire civilization and found themselves in our universe by accident. They possess abilities that seem to violate physical laws but operate under principles we don't yet understand. More importantly, they've demonstrated consistent principled behavior, respect for Federation values, and willingness to help without demanding reward or recognition. They're not threats, they're potential allies if we treat them with the respect they deserve. Admiral Cartwright leaned forward, his expression skeptical. Captain, your report documents beings who can disable heavy cruisers single-handedly, survive weapons that would vaporize starships, and move faster than our sensors can track. And you want us to believe they're just going to peacefully coexist, following our laws, accepting our authority? What's to stop them from deciding they know better than the Federation? What's to stop them from becoming dictators? Kal-El spoke before Kirk could respond. Admiral, with respect, what's to stop any powerful individual or organization from becoming dictators? The Federation itself commands vast military force. Starfleet has weapons that could destroy entire planets. Yet you trust your personnel not to abuse that power. You trust in principles, laws, and mutual accountability. We're asking for the same trust. It's hardly the same situation, Admiral Fitzgerald interjected. Starfleet operates under civilian oversight, regulations, command structure. You two answer to no one. We answer to our own principles, Kara said firmly. And to the people we choose to work alongside. Captain Kirk earned our trust by treating us like people rather than problems to be solved. We've chosen to respect his authority and Federation law not because we're compelled, but because it's right. If that's not good enough for you, then tell us plainly, are we prisoners or guests? The question hung in the air. We don't have protocols for beings of your capability level voluntarily placing themselves under our jurisdiction. Then create new protocols, Kal-El suggested. Protocols that recognize we're people with rights, not weapons to be classified. We're willing to work with the Federation, to help where we can, to operate within your laws. But we won't be controlled, studied like specimens, or deployed as military assets without our consent. Those are our terms. You don't get to dictate terms to Starfleet, Admiral Cartwright said coldly. Actually, Kirk interjected, they do. Because the alternative is they leave Federation space entirely, and you lose any chance of cooperation. Admirals, I've spent the last 2 weeks working alongside Kal-El and Kara. They've saved my ship, my crew, and 4,000 colonists. They've operated with restraint and principle in situations where they could have chosen violence. They've earned the right to be treated as allies rather than assets. Admiral Comac spoke for the first time, his voice measured. Captain Kirk, your loyalty to these individuals is noted. But the Federation Council has concerns. If we grant Kal-El and Kara unrestricted freedom, if we allow them to operate without oversight, we set a precedent. What happens when other powerful beings appear and demand the same treatment? What happens if they change their minds, if they decide Federation law doesn't apply to them? Then we'll deal with that situation when it arises, Kirk replied. But we don't punish people for crimes they haven't committed. We don't restrict freedom based on theoretical future betrayals. The Federation was founded on principles of individual rights and presumption of good faith. If we abandon those principles the moment someone powerful appears, then what are we defending? Silence filled the conference room. Kirk had made his argument, laid out his position, and challenged the admirals to live up to Federation ideals. Now it was their decision. Admiral Nogura stood, moving to the viewport that overlooked the starbase's massive docking bay. Captain Kirk, you have a talent for forcing us to confront our own principles. It's both admirable and deeply irritating. He turned back to face the room. Very well. Here's what the Federation Council has authorized me to offer. Kal-El and Kara will be granted provisional civilian status within Federation territory. They will be assigned to the Enterprise as civilian specialists for the remainder of your 5-year mission. They will operate under Captain Kirk's authority but will not be required to follow military orders that violate their principles. In exchange, they will submit to periodic medical examinations, non-invasive only, to help us understand their physiology, and they will provide consultation on matters where their unique capabilities might be relevant. And if we refuse? Kara asked. Then you're free to leave Federation space. We won't stop you, we won't pursue you, and you'll have our gratitude for your assistance with the Epsilon Canaris situation. But you'll have no official status, no protection under Federation law, and no guarantee that other powers won't attempt to capture or eliminate you. Kal-El and Kara exchanged glances. Kirk saw the silent conversation, the weighing of options and consequences. They could leave, disappear into unexplored space, find some remote world to make their own. Or they could stay, accept restrictions and oversight, but also gain community and purpose. We'll stay, Kal-El said finally. Under the terms you've outlined. But Admiral, understand this, we're choosing to stay because we believe in what the Federation represents. The moment that changes, the moment you try to use us as weapons against our will, we're gone. No negotiations, no second chances. We've learned that lesson too many times to ignore it again. Understood, Nogura replied. Captain Kirk, the Enterprise is cleared to resume its mission. You'll receive updated orders within the week. Dismissed. Later, in the Enterprise's observation lounge, Kirk found Kal-El and Kara staring out at the stars. The ship was preparing to depart Starbase 11, returning to the mission of exploration that had been interrupted by Romulan schemes and biological plagues. Having second thoughts? Kirk asked, joining them at the viewport. No, Kara said. But we're wondering what comes next. In our universe, we knew the threats, the enemies, the challenges. Here, everything's unknown. We're starting over. Starting over can be liberating, Kirk observed. You're not bound by past failures or successes. You can be whoever you choose to be. Kal-El smiled. That's the hope. Captain, thank you. For fighting for us, for trusting us, for giving us this chance. We won't waste it. I know you won't. Now, how do you two feel about exploration? Because in 3 days, we're scheduled to investigate a spatial anomaly in the Matara sector. Nothing dangerous, probably just unusual stellar phenomena. But you never know, might be interesting. Interesting is good, Kara said. We've had enough life-or-death crises for a while. Kirk laughed. Welcome to Starfleet, where routine surveys somehow turn into catastrophic emergencies with alarming regularity. You'll fit right in. As the Enterprise undocked from Starbase 11 and turned toward the unknown, Kirk felt something he hadn't experienced in weeks, optimism. Yes, the Romulans would remember. Yes, other threats would emerge. Yes, having 2 godlike beings aboard would complicate everything. But the Enterprise had faced impossible odds before and survived. They'd confronted entities of immense power and found common ground. They'd proved that principles mattered more than firepower, that diplomacy could succeed where weapons failed. And now they had 2 allies who embodied those ideals, refugees who'd lost everything yet chose to help anyway, beings of tremendous power who valued restraint and cooperation over domination. The stars beckoned. The universe waited. And somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between worlds, new adventures awaited. The Enterprise jumped to warp, carrying its crew and its newest members toward whatever came next. In the end, Superman and Supergirl didn't become weapons for the Federation or conquerors of a new reality. They became something more difficult and more meaningful. They became citizens of a universe that wasn't theirs, defenders of principles they chose to embrace, and symbols of what beings with power could achieve when they valued life over dominance. The Romulans learned a costly lesson about underestimating those who fight for others rather than themselves. The Klingon gained grudging respect for warriors who combined strength with mercy. And Starfleet discovered that sometimes the most dangerous individuals make the most valuable allies, if you have the courage to trust them. Captain Kirk's report to Starfleet Command would be studied for generations, not for its tactical analysis but for its philosophical argument, that power must be measured not by what beings can destroy, but by what they choose to protect. That the Federation's greatest strength lies not in its weapons or its ships, but in its willingness to extend trust even to those who could destroy it. Epsilon Canaris 3 recovered, its 4,000 survivors living testaments to what cooperation between different civilizations could achieve. Subcommander Tsarin faced Federation justice and eventually found redemption through years of work dismantling Romulan bioweapon programs. And the Enterprise continued its mission, exploring strange new worlds with two Kryptonians who'd found purpose in a universe of infinite diversity. In the cold mathematics of military strategy, Superman and Supergirl represented incalculable tactical advantages. But in the warmer calculus of humanity, or what passes for humanity among the stars, they represented something more important. Proof that those with the power to rule could choose instead to serve, that strangers could become family, and that even in the darkest reaches of space, hope could take flight. The legend of the day two demons attacked Romulan warships would spread through the quadrant, growing with each retelling. But aboard the Enterprise, they were simply Kal-El and Kara, colleagues, friends, and reminders that the universe was stranger and more wonderful than anyone had dared imagine. And in the captain's log, Kirk made one final entry. Personal note, today we gained more than tactical assets. We gained proof that the Federation's ideals transcend species, dimensions, and even reality itself. If beings from another universe can choose to uphold our principles, perhaps those principles are worth the sacrifices we make to preserve them. The voyage continues, the mission endures, and the crew, all of them, including our newest members, stands ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. This is Captain James T. Kirk, USS Enterprise. End log. The stars waited. The universe beckoned. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space and possibility, new stories were already beginning. Live long and prosper. Hit the subscribe button for more stories.